wait. No. It's not the same thing for a government to have a list of those who went to a protest in a certain city about whatever issue that it is for people to be made to get a vaccine across the board, everyone. Those are not the same things because the government can use those for different purposes. One is to limit COVID. The other could be used to suppress dissent.
3 topics we have lined up is Biden and the General Milley stuff. Or is it Milley? I've been pronouncing it wrong the whole time.
Well, I'm a hypocrite. I want to hear it.
Told.
By the way, I'm pretty sure this has to do with me doing the protest this weekend. I'm pretty sure about that. But we've had this discussion twice before. Once I was not streaming. Second time I think I was streaming. And the first time I let everybody dogpile me too on that. On whether I was a hypocrite for going to protests.
That'll be the final topic, I believe. Then we have the FBI hearing today, which I didn't get to watch a lot of the Larry Nassar. He was the gym coach for the U.S. gymnast that sexually assaulted many of the young girls. So we're going to talk about what we learned in that hearing. And firstly, though, we got a COVID-related topic.
I also got to be very careful about the General Alden memes, because I don't want to pull it out. But it is funny, but I'm going to do my best not to pull it out.
Why is it that all of the people that pretend to care about COVID don't really care about it with their actions? Have you noticed that?
This is the thing also while talking to Rob, or when Rob talks about like another lefty streamer or a lefty person or a lefty commentator or anyone really on the left, is just the worst assumption possible. It's not that, well, this person didn't check the hypocrisy on this, or this person, I would like to call out something that I think is inconsistent. It's they don't actually care about the nearly 700,000 dead. It's like, okay, well, there it is, you know? And you could say, well, people on the left wing do it too. Okay, whatever, right? But it's just like the immediate, like, worst assumption. Okay, so listen to this.
They go to Barack, they're okay with Barack Obama's celebration or with Lollapalooza or with,
They are okay, okay? This is they, the vague they, right? Which I assume I'm included in.
Masks off at the Met Gala and all that stuff. They're cool with all that. They're okay with Black Lives Matter, marching by the hundreds of thousands and all that stuff. That's fine. They don't mind that. But I have a specific example that I thought would be worth bringing up.
Okay.
And I'm not going to get a good answer from anyone on the left on this. So, fellow Twitch streamer Dylan Burns, who's a left-wing streamer, who we've had many debates with. I've been on his panel many times. And we've talked about his hypocrisy on COVID before.
Twice.
We had a big, long conversation about him criticizing a gym owner for not forcing people to wear masks because that wasn't following CDC guidelines and orders. Meanwhile, Dylan himself chose to violate CDC orders and the orders in his hometown by attending an anti-Trump rally.
Okay. So I talked to him about this at length. My answer was simple, right? So what he's talking about is the Million MAGA March. And so I've gone to multiple protests, and I've done it quite safely. I do my best to stay 6 feet. I wear masks, and I take all proper precautions afterwards when it comes to isolation and doing what you're supposed to do, right? Now, when it comes to restrictions, there's some restrictions I support and some restrictions I don't support. I believe that protest is an extremely important thing. It removes the pressure valve that can build up when needs are not meant to. It is important to get your voice heard, and a democratic system cannot function without it. And so I can't think of many situations ever that will make me specifically say, stop protests, right? Concerts, I do not hold in the same regard. Giant sports events, I do not hold in the same regard, right? Now, I also know that the data shows that when these Black Lives Matter protests occur, there is not large COVID spikes. And there's no evidence to show that there has been that case. There have been these large COVID spikes. This may be because since the protesters are usually left-wing, that they take more precautions when it comes to masks, sanitization. I did see sanitization at the event at the Million MAGA March, whether it be distancing or any of these things. Not everyone, but most people, that it doesn't cause a spike. It could be any number of reasons, but it doesn't. And so when I saw that they don't cause a spike, and I know my position on protests. And I hold this same thing, by the way. I hold this same standard for right-wing protests as well. But I believe also you can protest responsibly with masks, sanitization, all this stuff. Now, the difference is the gym owner didn't want to do a bare minimum, and the gym owner didn't really want to take any precautions at all, which I think is morally condemnable. That's the difference in my mind.
But he said it was okay because he could pick and choose because he did the research, so he could pick and choose which orders he wanted to follow. And I talked a lot about this on previous shows, how this is what you see from the authoritarian left constantly.
The authoritarian left. Name calling. Okay.
They constantly say everything that
I just want to make sure there's no tonal shift.
they do is okay. It's just the people doing slightly less than them or slightly more than them, depending on what the context is. They're the bad people. Everything I do is okay. That's where we should set the bar. This stuff's all acceptable, and then anyone outside of that's wrong. It doesn't matter. That scale will slide with whatever they do. Oh, we think you should follow the CDC. You should follow the science.
Lol, this approach is exactly why they never achieve anything in America. They are meant to just be a pressure release valve. I never said protest is just a pressure release valve. But if you ban protests, then when protests occur, they're usually going to be more violent than you actually expect. And the reason why is if you don't allow people to express themselves when they finally get to, they're going to take all advantage of. So when you don't ban protests, I think that it means when there is a fallout, there's more checks and balances to keep stuff stable. Because having a stable country is actually important. Not having everything in collapse is important. But protests are also supposed to get us change. Supposed to put pressure on the government as well. That pressure is relief that is released is supposed to be put on the government.
Except when they say to lock down and don't go to large gatherings. I choose to go to the large gathering. So that's okay. That's okay to do that. But everything else they say that I don't do, then you shouldn't do either. So, Dylan put on Twitter, and this it uses Dylan as an example, but it's more than just Dylan. Because there's many people that fall into the same criteria. So, This is what Dylan said. He said he got some new sound equipment, and he will be testing it out at the Trump rally, the Trump support rally in D.C. this week.
It's specifically like the Free the 6th or something along those lines. It has to do with freeing the January 6th protesters. I'm going to be going to that, and then afterwards I'm going to be going to the counter-protesters. So I'm going to try to get both sides. Okay, I think that's enough. I'll call him.
So the reason that I wanted to talk to you, it's not quite the same conversation we had before. Let me ask you this first before we get started. Do you think that Biden's vaccine mandate's a good idea?
So I was kind of like wavering on it for a while, but the way he did it specifically, I like, because he did give people a way to opt out with the weekly tests. They are weekly, right? And I also they are weekly, right? Yeah, weekly.
It's a huge inconvenience making someone get tested weekly.
Well, yeah, I would say that it is an inconvenience, but I believe it's not a completely unmanageable inconvenience. And I would also say that I am fine putting that social pressure on people to push them towards the idea of getting vaccinated. And the big reason why I think I am in favor of this is generally people are becoming less and less vaccine skeptic. Generally, that is the case. If you look at polling, people are generally starting to lean more towards vaccines actually being a good thing. Which is actually, you wouldn't expect that when you see how much people concentrate on the anti-vaxxers, right? But more and more people are becoming less vaccine skeptic. The problem is, with the last 20% that's entrenched, is these are the most hardcore radicals, mostly. There's like a 3% that if you ask them, they say, well, maybe. But the 17%, I think, is the actual number that I saw recently, that are the most hardcore radicals, right? And so
I don't know if I believe that polling, though. Because if it's only 17%, then we would the vaccine's pretty readily available. So why is it that only 17% of people are the unvaccinated then? We see that it's like,
well, no, not 17%. I didn't say 17% are the unvaccinated. I said 17% are the vaccine skeptics.
Right. So
somebody could just not be vaccinated for they haven't gotten around to it. It could be one reason that they just like, you know what, I don't really care about this stuff. It doesn't really matter to me. It could be people who haven't it hasn't gotten, like they haven't been made available for whatever reason. It could be a reason that I think honestly, most of them, if you want my honest opinion, is people who haven't gotten around to it. It's people who don't really care that much in either way and look at it and they're just like, oh, that's the thing to do, I guess, and they just haven't gotten around to it. I would actually say I think that's the most significant portion of the population is people who haven't gotten around to it. That would be my personal guess, but I have no data to back that up.
If that's true, I don't think that attacking them or forcing them through government fiat is the way to go about it. If it's true that only 17% are staunchly against it, then what we should be doing for those others that haven't been vaccinated but aren't really against it is maybe providing incentives or making ease of access easier for those people to get it. I don't think that attacking them or forcing them through their employment is going to be the way to go about it.
I don't think we should attack the people who haven't gotten around to it, right? For example, I think mocking someone for being an anti-vaxxer is different than mocking someone who has gotten around to it. Because if I'm like, this person just said like crystals and whatever is going to fix their stuff and the vaccine is like the microchip, that's different than like, you know, I'm just a trucker. I do my job A to B. I don't really pay attention to this news stuff. I'm not on social media. Like, right? That's like two totally different situations. When somebody's mocking an anti-vaxxer, they're not mocking that person who just hasn't gotten around to it and isn't like that into medical news or medical science, right?
It's not just the mocking, though. I mean, both Kamala Harris and Biden just this week have made pretty blatant statements that they're blaming the unvaccinated. It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and they're endangering the vaccinated. And it's pretty pointed language, particularly if their belief is if your belief shared by them, that it's actually only around 17% of people that are staunchly against it. And I don't know what that number is, but will you agree with me on those? Those that are staunchly against it right now, I don't know that you'll be able to change their mind.
Yeah, and that's why I'm in favor of the mandate. Or at least making it super inconvenient so that some of them will just roll their eyes and just do it to get it over with, right? That's why I'm in favor of it.
But what percentage of people do you think we need to have vaccinated before we see the mutations and stuff stop? Because we could both agree we're never going to see 100%.
We're never going to see 100% vaccination. But the whole point of, like, for example, if I go to school, let's say I have a kid, I want to send him to school. There's certain vaccines that he is expected to get. Now there are slots supposed to technically be open for people to not be vaccinated, but this is supposed to be for medical reasons, right? Mm-hmm. Or some other extenuating circumstance that makes it so they cannot get vaccinated. It should not just be someone's like, you know what? I have found the secret cheat code with these crystals, and I'm going to do these crystals with me and my child, and so they don't need to get vaccinated. That is not what it's supposed to be reserved for. It's supposed to be reserved for people with actual medical exceptions, which those people do exist. And so I want to make sure that those slots are available for those individuals.
Okay, but again, the question is, what percentage of people need to be vaccinated? Because again, we could see with other vaccines are far more serious, like polio and things like that. We don't have 100% vaccinated. So would you say like 90%, 95%, 98%? What percentage do you think needs to be vaccinated before we get over this?
I actually don't know. Should we Google that quick just so we have a number to work off of?
Sure.
Okay.
I've looked. This has a lot to do with what they call herd immunity. So originally they talked about around 70 to 72%. Then they said 80. Then they said 85. Now they're saying 90. And some are just saying we don't know. But I'm interested to see what the best evidence is, what that number would be.
What percentage of people need vaccinated? I'm sure somebody in chat would. If somebody in chat knows. I don't need the percentage of people fully vaccinated for my state. That's not what I asked.
I mean, I found something from the Cleveland Clinic that says 70 to 75%. That was from May 15th, though. The estimate for the COVID-19 is roughly 70 to 85% of the people will need to be vaccinated to reach herd immunity. Although this will likely be a moving target as we move into different stages of the pandemic.
Okay. So, one second.
Some say this is from the Houston, from August 4th, from Katie McCallum on Houston. I don't know what this site is, HoustonMethodist.org, but they're talking to a doctor here, and it says, how many people need to get vaccinated? Herd immunity looks different for different viruses. It's still unclear exactly how many people need to be vaccinated to get herd immunity, but experts estimate it'll take at least 70%, with some estimates ranging as high as 70%, or 90%, says this doctor. So 90% seems to be the high estimate.
Okay.
Unless someone,
so
unless
85
someone has
to 90%, we'll just work off of that number, right?
Okay. So then
Okay.
here's the problem.
So
Here's the problem,
okay.
right? So if 17% are the ones that are staunchly against vaccination, that means that eventually, without any sort of mandates or anything, just through ease of access, we will get the number to about 83% of people vaccinated. So then we're still okay. We're not at that 90.
That's not true. So that would assume, right? Sorry if my computer's messing up and I can't
It's
see
all
me
right.
at the moment.
I can still hear you.
So that would assume that every single person who is not a staunch anti-vaxxer, right, gets it, right?
Right.
That would assume every single one gets it, assuming that they will do it of their own motions, right? The thing is, I don't believe that. I can believe that people will acknowledge that something is medically beneficial for them and still not do it. For example, I acknowledge that drinking Pepsis is not good for my health, and this is my third one in the last 3 hours, right? It's not good. What I'm doing is not good. I know that, but I'm still doing it. And I do also know that with seatbelts, there was a lot of people who did not wear seatbelts for a long time until it was made mandatory. And it wasn't out of this big principled screw seatbelts. It was just out of I didn't really just go through the motions. They legitimately just didn't want to go through the motions. And this also assumes that the 17% number is the hard number. As in, as I said, it was 20% that were still vaccine skeptics. This assumes that those 3% all move over, and would also assume that this number is the correct number, even though it's a range, of course. There's some room to be wrong there for maybe it could be 22%, 23%, could be lower, could be either way. And so I don't know if I really want to play ring toss with the numbers, and that's why I'm more favorable towards getting a vaccine mandate.
Okay, so just real quick, I'll say on this, I don't think that the vaccine mandate will convince. I think it has the ability, a lot of people that would have said, I'm on the fence about the vaccine, I'm not staunchly against it, to now just say, if they're going to try to force this in me, I'm against it. In fact, I know a lot of vaccinated people that are against the mandate. And so I think that you'll see a lot of unvaccinated people that would have been likely to get it. So I don't know that this is the best way to go about it. But the point I was getting to is this. Even right now, it's we have 55 to 60% of people fully vaccinated. I think the number is approaching 70% that are partially vaccinated in the United States. But what Biden's mandate doesn't take into account is people that have natural immunity because they've had COVID. The CDC just this week admitted that they had underestimated the amount of people that had COVID by half. The CDC is now estimating 121 million people have had COVID. Stanford, Harvard, and Yale have been doing an estimate, and they estimate that 160 million people have had COVID. Now, there's going to be some overlap, but even if we take the high estimate of 50% of people that had COVID got vaccinated, that still means that there's an additional 60 to 80 million people that have natural immunity that is actually superior to the vaccine. So that would go towards acquiring that 85 to 90% number. The CDC itself has estimated that 83% of people right now today have immunity towards COVID. And yet we're not seeing any sort of herd immunity whatsoever. We're seeing cases magnified at this time this year than they were at this time last year.
So my big point is just going to be the fact that 99% of COVID deaths now are the unvaccinated. It is people who are unvaccinated. They're the ones who are dying. Vaccinated people can still die of COVID. That is a reality, right? But it is a statistical anomaly in the big picture, right?
Can I ask you a question real quick? Just on this, do you have any stats on hospitalizations?
Hospitalizations?
Unvaccinated
not on the top of
likely to be hospitalized.
The vaccinated are far more likely to be
hospitalized. The unvaccinated.
Yeah, yes, I do know they're more likely to be hospitalized. I don't know at what percentage higher. Okay. I know these are the things I know. I know they're more likely to die. They're more likely to be hospitalized, and they're more likely to have severe symptoms and lasting symptoms. Because people who catch COVID, some people think, okay, you've dealt with it. For a lot of people, that isn't the case. They have long-lasting health effects. That will not only be made less severe, there could be cases where you don't have it when you get vaccinated. So it's not just a lifesaver. It is something that can make your life easier going forward, and it can make it, if you do catch COVID, it's going to be more likely to be a breeze.
But so the hospitalization, you don't have the stats where that's fine. What about transmission? I've yet to be able to find good studies that give an estimate how much less likely you are to spread the disease if you're vaccinated. Did you see anything about that?
I don't have not off the top of my head, but when I was looking something up for this beforehand, because I thought it was going to be we might get into this territory. The CDC did say that you're less likely to transmit the disease if you are vaccinated. I don't know the exact number or percentage on that.
I don't blame you for not knowing, because I don't know, and I've looked heavily for it. I've seen some people throw a number out that said 40% less likely to spread, but I can't find the study that's suggesting that to be able to look. But I just figured I would ask in case you had it. So
okay,
then here's
somebody just sent this to me.
Okay.
Vaccines work. 97% of COVID deaths. I was saying 99, but I think you don't mean I meant that
Sure,
like in a
that's
literal
fine, yeah.
sense. 95% of hospitalizations, 94% of cases are among the unvaccinated. And this is specifically Pennsylvania, so this might be different across the country, but this is just like a snapshot. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see numbers statistically similar to this across the whole country.
Okay, that's good. It'll get to something that I'm going to bring up later. So my problem with all of this is, I'll tell you what my opinion on the vaccine is. I'm not vaccinated, but I have natural immunity. I had COVID in December, as you know. I talked to my physician, and my physician told me that he did not see a net benefit to me getting the vaccine because the natural immunity was superior. That's what he said to me and my wife. I don't think, unless we're talking, the only possibility we have for the government forcing people to take medications or to make healthcare decisions is if it would endanger other people, right? And even then, it has to be an extremely high threshold. So the problem with all these numbers that you're citing, that's tragic if individuals make poor health choices themselves, but we shouldn't force them to make decisions that are for their own health, right? So when we cite things like, well, 98% of the people that are dying, or 97, whatever the number was, are unvaccinated, that sucks. But also a huge proportion of them are overweight. We're not going to force them to lose weight, and therefore we shouldn't force them to vaccinate. So the argument for forced vaccination seems to be, this is the way Biden's spreading it, the unvaccinated are endangering the people that made the good decision and got vaccinated. And I don't see how any of these statistics justify that.
So I want to say something. So it is true that if you catch COVID, if you catch it again, or the odds of you catching it again, if you catch it again, it's probably going to be less severe, probably going to not be as bad for you, and you're not as likely to catch it again, period. But it is also true that if you caught COVID and have that quote unquote natural immunity, if you get vaccinated as well, then you're basically like a beast. You're good. Like
it's not really true.
That is true.
We can go through the number. I'll bring up the numbers here.
This is a study. Okay, there's a study out of Israel that says that natural immunity gives longer lasting and stronger protection than a vaccine. But that same exact study that people are using said that natural immunity plus a single vaccine gives the best possible protection.
So I think it's something like, if you have natural immunity, you have 99.74% immunity. And if you get the vaccine, you have 99.86. So that's an increase of 0.12% immunity that you have.
Are you talking about the Israel study?
I don't know if it was the Israel study or not. It was a study that they did on the Pfizer vaccine. I think it might have been the Israel study.
Yeah, this is the Pfizer vaccine study that I have right now. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. So it was a UK study. It was a UK study that I was looking at. I'll see if I can find it. The problem is that what it ended up showing was that given those numbers, we would have to vaccinate 1 million people that had COVID to see a reduction. I'm sorry, I'm getting my studies confused. We would have to vaccinate 886 people that had COVID to prevent one asymptomatic case of COVID. To prevent a symptomatic case of COVID, the study said that there was no statistical difference. So if we forced everyone that had COVID to get vaccinated, for every 886, we would stop one asymptomatic. So that's a non-hospitalization case of COVID. And there would be no stop of any hospitalization cases. However, that same study also said that for every 72 times that we vaccinate someone that has had COVID, they have a medical condition. It might be a fever. It might be inflammation of the heart. It's not always severe, but it's a medical incident. So we would end up causing about 80 incidents to medical incidents to save one asymptomatic COVID incident. So, I mean, again, once we're talking about 99.74% immunity from a virus, why should we force people to make a decision that will increase their chances of not getting it by 0.12? That's statistically nothing. It's just irrelevant.
So what you're saying is that we should make the unvaccinated get it who have not caught COVID, but if you've caught COVID, then you should be in the clear because statistically, like, was that what you're proposing, or what?
No,
What
no,
exactly
that's. I'm not saying that we should. I'm against forcing people that are unvaccinated and haven't had COVID as well. But certainly, there is no case. There is no case whatsoever when all of the studies tell us that the people that have had COVID have more immunity than the people that have the vaccine. That Biden's vaccine mandate doesn't make an exemption for those people that already have.
Can you send me the data, because it looks like every source that I'm looking at. I mean, I got it from a Forbes article, but now I'm looking at the links they're giving me, right? And it seems that all the sources I'm looking at are saying, like, look, to save lives, the best thing to do would be that not only if you already, number one is for everybody to get vaccinated. Now, let's say you've already caught COVID, still get vaccinated, because that increases your chances even more. And so getting everybody vaccinated is still the best path forward. That's what I seem to be seeing from every study that's attached to this. And this is a political fact article that is actually agreeing with Ron DeSantis, saying that natural immunity is actually a powerful thing, which it is. And anybody who would deny it would be like scientifically just incorrect. But what I'm saying is that paired with a vaccine and getting the unvaccinated who have not caught COVID to get vaccinated would be the best thing to do.
And that's not what forcing people's about, right? That's not what this mandate's about, right? Surely you're not going to make the claim that we should do everything possible and force people to do everything possible to fight COVID. You wouldn't make that claim, right?
Well, of course, everything, I think, within reason, yes.
Okay, well then, if we're talking about the people that are already the most immune, why would we say they have to go a step further if they don't want? They're already the safest people.
Wait. Well, I don't think this is an entirely risky step forward. For example, I would say that, like, if everybody was to, like, say, we said everybody has to stay home, get in a bubble, and just live in there, because then no COVID could spread. And that's true, but then society would break down, right? And I'm thinking about what would be the best things we could do to save the most lives, protect the most people, and are at the lowest cost and have the lowest risk possible, right? And making everybody get vaccinated is that path for me. It isn't just, well, you know what we do? We have everybody stay home, and we're gonna live in like tunnels on the ground. I think this is still within reason. I don't think we're really doing anything outside the boundaries of what I would consider reasonable.
So again, it would. Only,
by the way, I would like to put up the fact, by the way, that difference that you brought up, it sounds small, right? You said it was like 97. It was like an increase of 1.5%, right?
0.12%.
0.12, or well, it is probably 0.12, 0.15 in that range, right? From somebody threw me like a 98.5, so I'm just gonna assume it's one of the two. It doesn't really statistically, it's very the same. That halves the remaining cases. Yes, it does.
No, so how many? Let me ask you this: is it your estimation that many of the cases that are being spread by the vaccinated?
Many. There are cases that are being spread by the vaccinated.
But you would say that's your estimate. Your guess would be more being spread by the unvaccinated than the vaccinated, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so would you also agree that natural immunity is superior to the vaccine?
At least as far as I can see, the Israel study seems to show so. Yes.
Okay, so
but
why
let's be clear. Wait,
can
we say as a background though that for everyone to acquire natural immunity, a ton more people would have to die, which would be bad. So we're not advocating for that, and I just want to make clear to everybody, neither of us are advocating for that.
No, that's of course not. But then it would be absurd to think that if we forced the people with natural immunity to get the vaccine, we would cut in half the amount of COVID cases we have. That's absurd.
Wait, no.
That would imply that the people with natural immunity are responsible.
Okay, I think you didn't understand what I said. So what I said was that you're saying that 1.5, 1.2, that increase is basically statistically nothing, and so it's not worth it, and why would we go through all this trouble for something so small? But what I am saying is, of that percentage, right, what you're doing is their odds of getting COVID, of that person who's caught it before, is cut in half by getting vaccinated. And all the articles, whether it be from Science, PolitiFact, MedRx, all the things I'm looking at, including probably, I think most experts and politicians would agree that somebody who's caught COVID should also get vaccinated. So if we have basically most of the medical experts agreeing, and even you would agree that it does increase, it cuts it in half with your own numbers, it doesn't seem like saying everyone gets vaccinated and just making it a blank check for everyone is an unreasonable thing to do.
I don't understand how it would cut the cases in half. It wouldn't cut cases in half. Like, imagine you have a 99.999 chance.
I didn't say
of not
all
getting
cases.
the virus.
I said their cases. Like
Right.
the remaining percentage chance of them catching COVID is cut in half.
Okay. All right. Fine. We'll say that that's true. So you think that that's why they should be forced?
I'm working
to
off
take
your
the vaccine.
numbers, right?
Okay. You think that that's justification for forcing them to take the vaccine?
I think that is one reason. I also think just creating a blank check is the easiest thing to do, because the problem is if we say, well, this population needs to get vaccinated, this doesn't, doing this in this manner, I think is the easiest way to do it, because then you don't have to revisit this later, as for one thing. And number two, you're not going to have the, well, Susan didn't have to get the vaccine, but I had to get the vaccine. And you want to limit those cases as much as possible and just have it for medical exemptions. Really.
So again, I don't think that we take away people's freedoms on the base of ease in that sense, right? There's all kinds of tyrannical things that would justify that. But anyways,
can I ask, like, how, like, what exactly am I taking away from people that's so valuable and it isn't worth the lives that it would save?
You're taking away people's freedom to make the medical choices they want. And in this case, you're taking away the people that are the least likely to spread the virus's freedoms away.
So let me ask you a question. I will admit to you that in a way, I am at least, if not taking away, pressuring them in a certain direction, because they don't have to get vaccinated, but they're going to have in some way a penalty for not getting vaccinated, which is at least the inconvenience of getting tested every week, right? We can say it's for their safety, we can say it's everyone's safety, but they have to go through that inconvenience. Would you agree with that framing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I will agree to that we are doing that, but I also agree that I think there's limits on freedom when it comes to public safety to a certain extent, right? Everybody agrees there's a limit on freedom somewhere. People just disagree about where the line should be drawn. As an American, generally around the world, as somebody who's a supporter of, say, the Second Amendment, supporter of other things, we might have lesser than the rest of the world in many instances. Definitely when it comes to our soda sizes. But when it comes to this, I don't see this loss of the medical freedom to not choose to get vaccinated or not vaccinated in this instance as something that's a freedom worth protecting at the loss of these many lives. The same way, I would like to finish. The same way that I didn't have a problem with it when it came to getting most vaccines when it comes into entering the public school system, which that's a huge disincentive, right? Like, let's say you're somebody who wants their kid to get an education, a good education. You're not a teacher. You're a good American coal mining truck driver astronaut, right? You don't got teaching skills. You did everything else, but you're not a teacher. And so you want to send them to public school, but you believe in whatever you believe when it comes to vaccines, and you don't want your kid to get vaccinated. You don't want to get vaccinated, any types of vaccines. Let's say you believe the autism nonsense. You basically can't send your kid to public school in many instances unless you're going to find a way to do the like, hey, maybe there's a medical exception. Unless you have that, you basically got to do homeschooling. We already have many of these in place, and this is just within vaccines. We could talk about seatbelts, for example. Seatbelt laws, while actually pretty recent, are very socially accepted as something that's needed to protect people, because some people won't go through the motions of putting on a seatbelt. Now, so my question to you would be, and I think you'd bite the bullet on this, what do you think of seatbelt laws? Do you think they should be repealed?
Yes.
Okay.
I the same with like helmets with bike. If there was evidence that you not wearing a seatbelt endangered other people, then it would be a different conversation. Which that would be your argument with the vaccine, right? It's not just about protecting yourself; it's about protecting other people.
So we could have the conversation about seatbelts another time, because that might be interesting. Because I will say seatbelts endanger you. I do believe that everybody should have to at least put their kids in a seatbelt. That's something I will say.
That's
that
different.
Children, you can't make the decision to just make your child do something extremely risky, in my opinion, like something like that. I feel that is a form of child neglect. But we can have the seatbelt discussion another day. But yeah, not only do I believe in seatbelts, but I also believe in this for people as well. And this is also something that affects everyone else. So that's another reason why I would support it.
The vaccine laws that we already have in the books, and those types of vaccines are massively different, right? First off, most of them are done at the state level, not at the federal level. Secondly, they're not using OSHA to stop people in workplaces and things like that, which is a massive red flag and is beyond the scope of what.
First, can I address the first thing? Can we?
Sure.
So But if it was state level, you would hold the same position. So whether it's
Sure.
federal or state doesn't really matter to you on a fundamental level since you hold the same opposition.
Well, that's technically true, but it would be more, because of the way our Constitution's written, it would be more applicable for the state to do something, even though I'd be against it. And if the state is going to do something, then it would be through the legislator, not through executive fiat from the governor.
So what you're saying is like if you're against gun control, but you're against it even more for federal government for separate reasons that have to do with localities controlling their own
Yes,
governance.
that is correct.
Okay,
that's part of it.
But I just wanted to make clear
principle.
that it's fun. I want to keep it fundamentally on the vaccine mandate
okay,
because if all 50 states agreed to do it, you would still hold the same opposition.
Right. So okay, we'll just focus on that level. We can also see that these viruses that we're being vaccinated for, one, they're viruses or they're illnesses that were incredibly lethal if they spread, unlike COVID, particularly when it comes to children. COVID's actually less lethal than the common influenza. Even in general, COVID is lethal, but it's lethal because it's infected so many people, right?
Yes.
When we're talking about polio and things like that, its fatality rate was much higher. Also, they were diseases that we knew much more about and vaccines that we had around for years before we had state level mandates to say that kids had to have these before they went into schools.
Yes.
All of that is massively different. Like, for example, Joe Biden suggesting pushing boosters. He's saying that we should take these boosters, which two of the top officials at the FDA resigned because they said that they thought that the president was forcing them to make the decision to tell people that they were safe and necessary. And so two top FDA officials resigned and then released a paper saying that they're not necessary to have boosters. So this is something that's... Go ahead.
You made a lot of points, so I just want to address. Can you make... So the first point, I think, had to do with the fatality rates of many of the things that we get vaccinated for. Sure. Many of the things we get vaccinated for, the fatality rates are much lower than COVID, right? And that's even before, for example, like chickenpox is an example of this, right? There's also the cases of flu, for example. Less people die of the flu than of COVID. And that for a while, people said, and I'm not saying you said this, I want to be very clear, I don't want to straw man you, but there have been people who said, this is just the flu, right? Which isn't the case. It is not the flu because it actually has killed more people than the flu. And so if my reasoning is I want to stop the most people from dying, right, then and other things that we've already vaccinated people for that kill less people every year, then yeah, I'd be perfectly fine getting people vaccinated for this and making this something that is mandated by law. And it's not even completely mandated by law. There's not this exception for flu testing every week, as far as I know, in schools and stuff. This actually is more lax than some people would actually want.
Okay, but again, like we could see that the vaccines before were around for many, many years before state levels said that kids should have to have them before they go to public school. It's vastly different than the executive branch saying that a brand new vaccine should come out that came out only a year that we still don't know the long-term effects from for a disease.
Can we talk about that for a second though? Let's concentrate on that.
Sure.
So
okay.
I agree that we haven't had this vaccine around the same length of the other vaccines that we're putting into people. I agree with that. Right? And that's, I think, part of the reason, maybe you could say, that there is the partial exception. If for whatever reason that you legitimately, that is a concern for you, you can take that exception. Now, is it an inconvenience? Of course, but there's not a lot of vaccines. The tested. It is an inconvenience, but I don't know of that being available for flu. I don't know of that being available for chickenpox. This was specifically put in place, I think, by the Biden administration to deal with the fact that they know there's going to be people who are going to be really in opposition to this, who might become, quote unquote, problems at work, right? And they want to make sure that, because if they make up 1/5 of the population, that's a significant part of the workforce. Doing this means that the most hardcore people could continue to not be vaccinated, as well as keeping other people safe and the people in question safe. That isn't available for other things like chickenpox. That's a special exception that's being made. And again, I would like to highlight that the Pfizer vaccine has been FDA approved. Now, it was already approved for emergency approval, which is enough for me, right? But apparently it wasn't enough for a lot of people. Now it's been approved by the FDA, right? Now we can start saying what new standards we're going to place, what's the next line, how long does it need to be around before we can make it mandate? But the FDA approval for me is enough. I couldn't think of anything else that I could personally request at the moment to make it okay, now it's okay, now we can mandate it. Or what's the next thing? We got to wait 5 years, 10 years. I think the FDA approval was enough for me when I make this determination.
Should we mandate booster shots too if the CDC says?
Should we mandate booster shots too? I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
I'm going to say that we
Can't-
should. And
sorry, I didn't get the start of that.
two of the top FDA officials resigned because they said the Biden administration was pressuring them to go ahead and say that the FDA gave the approval for the booster shots.
Well, I mean, I haven't done enough research on the booster shots, but if the same things are true about the booster shots, I would have no problem with it, especially since this is free. The thing is, I would maybe have a lot more different opinions, like a lot more. I would have probably some different thoughts on this if this was something that was charged, like for people to go get it and they were charged for it, but this is something that's completely free, which I don't really have an opposition to booster shots unless somebody could show me that the booster shots is like literally like meaningless.
Two of the top officials from the FDA resigned because they said the Biden administration was forcing them to come to a conclusion.
Okay.
So that's the sort of things I'm talking about, the lack of trust in these agencies. The FDA approving that you're voluntarily allowed to take a drug, that's fine, right? But forcing people to take them seems to be a different threshold. But
well, wait. But what would be the threshold they would have to meet that you'd be okay with it? The problem is you would never be okay with it because you're, I don't know what to say, but you're extremely pro health freedom. I'll say that
Right.
would be the most good faith way possible.
My body, my choice.
So it's kind of hard for me to be like, well, okay, so emergency approval wasn't enough, FDA approval wasn't enough, because whatever I throw out for, okay, let's wait 5 years, would it be okay then? You'd say, well, I mean, to be fair, the chickenpox vaccine has been out longer, and this has been out long. There's no standard that I could meet for you, and the FDA approval is enough for me, right? And I don't know anything about booster shots, so I can't comment them, but I know I'm fine with the 2 vaccines, and I haven't seen anything that's particularly concerning about booster shots yet. The 2 resignations, I guess that could be something that's concerning, but I don't think they resigned over the idea that booster shots are going to kill people, over the idea that they're going to.
Oh, no. I don't even think that's the allegation. The allegation is that they were doing their job, that they're trying to see if this is safe for public consumption, and they felt like they were being politically pressured to come to an answer. And so they resigned because that's not the same as them saying this is going to kill you. I want to be clear. Right, that's not what they said, and that's
okay. Again, I don't know about the specifics of this case,
so
that's why I said I don't. That's why I said I don't know, because I don't want to make claims about something I'm not knowledgeable about.
Okay, so we'll move on. I'll just say this. When you ask about my threshold, even though I would be against forcing these sorts of vaccines on people, you could see a case where it would be more reasonable if the vaccine had been around for a long time. We don't know and can't know what the long-term implications of the vaccine might be. It could be that like somehow 5 years from now, we realize that women's fertility has been damaged because of this vaccine. And if we damaged their fertility, particularly with people that had natural immunity already, that were already 99.74% protected from the virus, just to bump them up a 0.12%, but at the damage of their fertility, that would be tragic. That's the difference between the mandates that we had in the past. We had access to these vaccines for years and years and years in research, and we were able to see long-term effects. And we were able to see not that vaccines kept people from getting ill from the virus, but they actually stopped the spread of the virus.
Let me ask you a question. Do we have sufficient evidence at this point to prove that it would damage long-term fertility in women when they get this vaccine?
No.
We don't.
No.
Okay. Do we have sufficient evidence or proof for any of the health concerns that you said could be found years later?
No.
The answer would be no. And so my thing is, what you're saying is we need to take a risk by not having people mandated to get the vaccine, and knowing that this is going to lead to more people dying, because if there's less people vaccinated, statistically, that's going to be the likely outcome. We need to take a risk for the possibility that down the road, we could possibly bump into something that's already been put through emergency approval checks and full FDA approval. For me, that's not for me, dog.
Right? Because people are allowed to make their own poor health choices, right? That's the issue. And when you talk about like the reasons for this is because the majority of people that are dying, a heavy majority of them, or the majority of people that are hospitalized are unvaccinated. That's their choice. Like, for example, we could say, would you be for mandating that people that are overweight have to lose weight? Would you be for that? Would you be for mandating that we all have to have a card that says, oh, if you're over a certain weight or if your blood pressure is so high, you can't go to McDonald's or you can't get so high cholesterol food or something like that?
I remember my time in a mental institution, a very short period of time. I'm not insane, Chad. I just had to for personal reasons. my time in there made me value personal freedoms at a very high regard when it comes to the idea that I was pissed that I couldn't just leave there and do what I want. I didn't even want to go to McDonald's. I just wanted the ability to, right? And I'm fine with people, in many cases, making those decisions for themselves. I think there's certain choices that I think that should be completely free-ho, right? When it comes to things like vaccines, which affect other people, number one, but are also, I think, in my opinion, something that is a current active going health crisis, regulations to a certain extent are fine with me being placed upon that. And that also is the same for our obesity crisis as well. While I don't want to ban people outright from going and eating burgers, I would perfectly be fine with the government enacting policies that make it easier for people to get health options, or even, and this is something that people might disagree with me on, possibly slightly more difficult to take the less healthy option. And when it comes to this, you don't need to get vaccinated. It most likely you'll be motivated to, but you can take the exception if you so please, which is not something that's in line with any other vaccine. This is a special exception Biden made in this instance.
Okay, so two things on that. One,
also, somebody asked me to ask you this. Can I smoke in an Applebee's?
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't see the relevance.
Well, the idea, I think the idea would be that is a personal health choice that you're making that's affecting other people. So therefore, placing regulations upon that makes sense, since that personal freedom you're taking upon is gonna, in some cases, irreversibly change the lives of others. It could give others lung cancer. It could affect them in negative ways.
But that's different, because that's talking about actively doing something that's actively endangering people, and personal businesses making the decision to not want that sort of behavior. That's different than forcing someone to take prophylactic measures because you think there's a chance that they could get someone sick if they don't take that prophylactic measure. Similarly, I could say,
the effect's the same, okay? The effect is the same. The effect. Wait. Let me draw the analogy. If I'm smoking, if I'm puffing it up, right? With the boys on boys' night, we went out and played bowling. I got my strikes. All the women are fawning over me, and then I smoke up a big one, right? As the boys do. Mm-hmm. That can affect the other people in the bowling. I was about to say bowling arena. At the bowling, what is it? Bowling
alley.
Bowling alley. Oh my God. Bowling alley, not the bowling arena. The bowling alley. It's going to have a negative effect on their health, and it could possibly give them diseases that could affect their life forever, and it could hurt their health forever, right? The effect there is the same. Your personal health decision has a possible negative long-lasting impact on these other people. If I walk into that same bowling alley unvaccinated, taking I don't want to wear a mask, I don't want to stay 6 feet, I'm unvaccinated, that has the possibility of spreading a health problem to other people who did not make those personal health decisions for themselves because of your risky behavior.
The laws are stupid. It should be up to each individual business as to whether or not they want smoking. So I'm against smoking laws anyways, but in the effect that they're there, it's different when you're talking about someone taking an action that could endanger people versus forcing someone to take a prophylactic measure. It's different. But anyways, I don't want to get mired in this, right? So the last thing I want to say on this point, when you're talking about jeopardizing people, there's two things to talk about on this, right? The first is, you agree with Biden's vaccine mandate that forces the most protected amongst us, those that have natural immunity, to get the vaccine. So let's use your own. It's not
exclusively them, though. It's supposed to be a blanket.
But it forces them. So that
doesn't force them. It doesn't technically force them. It gives them an out if they want to take that out.
Okay, we'll get to that. But anyways, and the justification is because that would protect other people. It's about protecting other people. So let's use the numbers that you gave, that 97 or 95% of the people that are hospitalized, that are dying, or that have serious consequences, that's the numbers you cited of people that are having serious reactions to COVID, correct? 95 to 97%.
Yeah, of the population that is currently have COVID or doing these things, the vast majority are unvaccinated.
So 2 to 3% maybe of people that die, maybe even less than that, 1% of the people that die are people that are vaccinated?
About 1 to 2%. Okay,
so let's say then that we had, how many deaths have there been since the vaccine was available? Let's say since January. 160,000 COVID deaths, something like that?
I would have to check. Can we go
Because
check?
everyone said 500,000 when Trump was in office.
Now it's
So after
600,000. So it's been like, I think 150,000 is about right, I think.
150,000. Okay.
Yes. Also,
So
can I
here's-
just get a clarification? So you are against smoking laws, to be clear.
Yes.
Okay, so you believe that if I was in the bowling alley, I should be able to light up that Marlboro if I wanted to.
If the business owner
And if the
allows it,
business was like, this is a smoking bowling alley or whatever
yes.
for everybody. Okay, got it. I just wanted to be clear. Okay, you can continue.
So freedom, baby. So anyways, 150,000 deaths since January, we'll say, right? Since the vaccine became prevalent. If 1% of those deaths have been vaccinated, you're forcing the entire population to do something to save 1,500 lives.
Okay, so to be clear, we don't know how many people are going to die once this is all said and done by COVID, right? At this point, we don't know if it's going to be 15,000 people, but from the numbers I'm seeing, there are people predicted it's going to go over the 700,000 mark, right?
We're only concerned about saving people that are vaccinated and protecting them from the unvaccinated. According to your numbers, that would be 1,500 people this year.
Why am I'm concerned about saving everybody. I'm not just a...
But that's not what the argument for vaccine mandates is.
Wait.
Just like you said about smoking. It's that you smoking could jeopardize the other people.
Okay. Let me just be clear. So I watched your thing about me a little bit, right? And
we haven't even got to that part, but yeah, we'll get to it.
But in that, you say pretty clearly that this is the argument by the Biden administration, the left, TM, and all that, right? And I've expressed many times, I'm my own individual person. I disagree with the left on some things. I agree with them on some things. I am doing this not only for the fact of protecting others, but I've already told you I'm in favor of seatbelt laws, right? So obviously, if I believe that as well, which a seatbelt law doesn't protect the person you got in a car accident with, that protects you, right? So it's not just about saving the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. It's about saving those people as well, and getting them vaccinated is going to increase their odds of not dying of COVID greatly.
But with your rationale, 300,000 people a year die of obesity and complications with obesity. Yes. Your rationale would say that we should force them to not be obese.
So, actually, I would be somewhat in favor of similar legislation. And I've already expressed this. Wait, you got to listen to what I'm about to say.
I'm listening.
So, I am actually in favor of legislation that makes it easier for people to, say, eat healthy foods. Right? Are you okay with that? So we have an obesity epidemic. It could be a national security crisis because we need people who are willing to serve in the military. It could be a problem. It's a problem for a healthcare system that we have a lot of obese people because it's a big strain on that. If we ever want to have universal healthcare, that's going to be a big problem, right? There's a lot of reasons why it's going to be very difficult. So making it easier for them to eat healthy foods is fine, right? And I would also be fine in some instances of making it slightly more difficult for people to eat not healthy foods. A great example of this is replacing the vending machines in schools with healthier options. I'm perfectly fine with that. If they want to go out of their way to go get cupcakes and go do that, they can. And you want to know something about this vaccine mandate? You can, if you want to, not get vaccinated. It is more difficult, but you can make that option if you want to. And I'm perfectly fine. Now, of course, the varies of extent.
Let's do an apples-to-apples comparison. So you'd be a fan if someone's overweight, that their employers would be fined $14,000, whatever it is, for every person that they allowed to be overweight and didn't check their blood pressure once a week.
Wait, okay, to be clear, a boss, the process of making somebody not obese and the process of making somebody vaccinated are totally different. You would agree with that, right? The one is a month-long effort that takes possibly thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, sometimes from the person in question, in comparison to something that's completely free. The burdens that would be placed on businesses is completely different in both scenarios. In fact, Biden just removed a massive burden from businesses. And I think a lot of conservatives aren't seeing this. 1 second. Somebody just donated a TTS, and I'm not going to listen to anything they have to say because doing that while I'm talking, I'm not going to listen to it. And this is a future message for everybody else. Well, I'm definitely having a debate. I understand you want to donate, but I'm not going to listen to whatever you have to say because I'm trying to have a conversation. Okay. So, the reason why it removes a burden from these businesses is many of these businesses due to the labor shortage that many of these businesses are currently suffering. And you can see all these companies doing these like slick things like, hey, get your 15-year-old to work at McDonald's, and all this very specific marketing they can get around to just, maybe paying their workers a little bit more. They also didn't want to have to deal with the fact that 1/5 of the population possibly has some pretty weird views about vaccinations, and they didn't want to mandate it themselves, right? And so what the Biden administration just did is they bit the bullet for these companies. These companies now, if somebody was going to say, well, you know what, Billy, I'm just going to quit and I'm going to go over to Joe's, and Joe's is going to hire me, and he's going to say I don't have to get vaccinated. They can't do that anymore. And because they can't do that anymore, they just bit the bullet for these companies. They're not the ones making you do it. The government is. You can't drop it out of the company's feet. So if anything, this is something that actually removes a burden from businesses.
Regardless, like your rationale, like you had a clever deflection there. We're talking about forcing people to get tested or be vaccinated. And you said, when I said, if it's just about protecting not just other people, right?
If there was a vaccine that somebody could take to make them not obese, and it was completely free and available to all Americans, I'd be fine with enforcing that.
Okay, so for example, we can see that there's medication to lower blood pressure. So should every overweight American be forced to take that medication, or their employers punished?
Wait, okay, let's stay with the same analogy.
Sure.
So the analogy is that this vaccine that you take basically makes you not completely immune, but the odds of you catching COVID are greatly down. The negative health effects, all of that plummets, which is not only going to help the people save lives, but is going to remove a massive burden from a medical system which is currently overworked. There is multiple hospitals across this country which are having to put patients outside the hospital because they don't have enough room, and people
as you admitted, there's also a lot of overwork in the hospital for obesity as well.
Yes, so let me finish. So if all it took was I just give this person a vaccine, they take it, and the odds of them becoming obese decreases by 97%, I'd be perfectly fine with enforcing that, because the amount of benefits to society would be massive. The amount of negative economic impacts when it comes to our workforce would be greatly reduced. The national security risk that many people like Endernex brought up to me one day about our military recruitment of obese people, that would be reduced. Not to mention the fact that the massive burden that is currently placed on a medical system right now, and is cited by many people why we can't have Medicare for all or universal health care, that would be greatly reduced. And it would be completely free, and it has really next to no impact on people's freedoms. Now you could say, what about the health freedom? That's what this vaccine is. It isn't something where you have to do this day in jogging. It's a quick prick in the arm. So this massive burden on freedoms, I'm just not seeing it. If we had the same thing for obesity, I would 100% be in favor of like the fat away vaccine. But again,
you're cleverly conflating things, right? The vaccine doesn't prevent 97% of people of getting COVID. It prevents serious symptoms of getting COVID. That would be in line with like blood pressure.
Wait. Can we go back to the stats? Can somebody send me the stats again? I could have sworn like the odds of you catching COVID greatly reduced. Somebody would have to send me the. Okay. 97% of COVID deaths, 95% of hospitalizations, and 94% of cases are among the unvaccinated, right? So 94%. This is specifically Pennsylvania, so the numbers could be a little bit different. But let's say, I'll be nice. Let's just say it's 90%. Oh my God. If you got that vaccine, Rob, you had a 9% out of 10 chance of just of us both like no longer being fatties. Me and you would just lose a ton of weight.
Let me. I don't know that you understand fully what you're talking about. First off, the way they would measure cases is people that go to the hospital. Second off, we could see the CDC.
Wait, these are two separate numbers, by the way. 95% of hospitalizations and 94% of cases.
All right. So how are they determining the cases? What if you're asymptomatic?
Well, of course we can't. If somebody's asymptomatic and they haven't been tested, we can't do that. But that, again, like,
now let me go on. Right?
Okay,
the CDC stopped keeping track of breakthrough cases. The only thing the CDC keeps track of when it comes to the vaccinated is hospitalizations and deaths. They don't keep track anymore of people that contracted COVID that had the vaccine. Right?
Okay.
You agree?
Okay, can you say that again? I'm sorry, one more time.
Sure. The CDC no longer, since May, they no longer track how many vaccinated people contracted COVID. They only track hospitalizations and deaths.
They don't track breakthrough cases. I'll assume it's true. Somebody in chat will tell me if it isn't.
Yes, that's true. So, okay. So given that, and given that we now see the CDC came out last week or this week, I don't know exactly when it was, and said, actually, we underestimated the amount of cases by half. That would mean that half that they underestimated were probably asymptomatic cases. And if we know that the vaccine, the fundamental thing it does is lessen the severity of symptoms, then there's probably a lot of vaccinated people that got sick and just had no idea. And who would give a shit anyways? Like, who cares if you get a cold if you really don't have symptoms? Same thing, right? So we don't know.
Wait. This feels like weird. Okay. So you agree with me that if someone gets vaccinated, the odds of them getting COVID goes down, right?
I don't know that. It probably does, but I don't know.
Okay.
We know that I will say that the data seems to strongly suggest the odds of them having serious effects from it are massively decreased.
Also, somebody just sent me an article that the CDC did not stop reporting COVID-19 cases among people who were vaccinated.
All right, I'll bring it up.
Okay. Center for Disease Control reports all cases of COVID-19, even if someone has been vaccinated. On Tuesday, an Instagram post circulating said the CDC will no longer report COVID cases. When did this happen, by the way?
May.
Okay, this article's from May 14th. So,
right. So ProPublica, do you trust them?
I mean, if you want to send it over to me, sure, I'll look. I don't actually know what ProPublica is. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, they're like the left-wing outlet, but they're quoting the actual CDC. I'll read it real quick here.
Second.
So this is from an article from August. You could read along if you want. The CDC only tracks a fraction of breakthrough COVID-19 infections, even as cases surge. A May 1st decision by the CDC to only track breakthrough infections that lead to hospitalization or death has left the nation with a muddled understanding of COVID-19's impact on the vaccinated.
Okay.
I could read more if you want.
Let me read this quick. This is from AP News. This is what I got. An Instagram post circulated said the CDC will no longer report COVID cases of those who have been vaccinated, only unvaccinated. But this claim is not accurate. COVID-19 is a reportable condition, meaning that by law, every positive test must be reported. The National Notifiable Disease Surveillance System requires testing sites and medical facilities to report positive tests to the local health department. They then pass the information to the state health department, which notifies the CDC. CDC is not going to stop reporting the cases of COVID-19 in any fashion, said Kristen Noland, the health communication specialist at the CDC. So this is from the health communication specialist at the CDC. CDC is not going to stop reporting cases of COVID-19 in any fashion. However, mild and asymptomatic COVID-19 breakthrough cases, which occur often in someone who's been fully vaccinated, will no longer be published separately on the CDC's website. So they're still counting them.
No, they don't. And even the CDC's website.
They said publish.
Go ahead, find the numbers. Then go ahead and find the numbers.
Wait. Okay, they're still reporting the cases. They're not just publishing them separately.
No, they're not reporting the cases.
Okay. Let me read this one more time. However, mild and What?
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
However, mild and asymptomatic cases of COVID-19 breakthrough cases, which occur after someone has been fully vaccinated, will no longer be published separately on the CDC's website. According to CDC, special surveillance of breakthrough cases was initially set up to identify patterns among individuals who were vaccinated and still got COVID-19. Since an analysis of those cases has not been shown any unexpected patterns, the CDC has changed their approach to surveillance. So they're still counting them. They're not just publishing them as a separate list, right?
Okay,
for example, let's say that we had this this thing where we were counting people who caught COVID with blue eyes in a separate list. And then they were like, you know what? This has actually no reason to be monitored in this way, so let's just put those numbers with everybody else. And then they merge those numbers, and they still count blue-eyed people. They're just not putting them in a separate column. That's what it seems to have happened.
Okay, so let's think of what that actually means. So before they were saying 10,000 people that were unvaccinated in this state caught COVID, and 100 people that were vaccinated caught COVID. That's how they were reporting before. They were separating it, right?
Well, yeah, but it wasn't. Those usually weren't the numbers, to be clear.
Okay, now they're saying 11,000 people got COVID. And they don't tell you how many that got COVID were vaccinated. They just count everyone that had COVID.
They said it wasn't important, basically.
Right. So they're not reporting the vaccinated status. Well, that's exactly.
Yes, they're not reporting vaccinated status. Yes, right. But they are still reporting on those cases.
So all we know is they say this is how many COVID cases there were. So when people say, "Oh, well, the vaccinated aren't getting many cases," we don't know that. The CDC's not reporting that.
Has study after study after study after study has showed, whether it be the Israel study which you cited, which I can use your own study, shows that people, even when they catch COVID, but that's not even my main point, if they get vaccinated, the odds of them spreading it go down massively. That's study after study after study. The problem I think you're saying is that you also want to show that statistically in the data. That's why you're saying probably, right?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't think the Israel data says what you say. I'm just making the point that the idea that we know how many people that people that are vaccinated are significantly getting the virus less. We don't know what that percentage is. The CDC doesn't keep track of it.
They did keep track of it. And let me ask you a question. While they were keeping track of it, was there anything notable about that would suggest anything fishy or anything that we need to know? Because they said obviously they did do that for a while then. And if you're so concerned about it, you took a look at that, I assume, or not. If you didn't,
there were people. It showed that there were people that were vaccinated that were getting the virus. We know for a fact,
and we still know that.
But listen, but we don't know when more people were getting the virus. We needed to see the data to be able to tell us how often people that are vaccinated are getting the virus.
Well, we have the studies to show that. And that data was publicly available. We can just look at that data, and that data correlated with the studies pretty closely. Wait,
show me the data.
Okay.
You just admitted they're not publishing the data.
Wait, okay, so Rob, you came up to me and you said they were publishing data, then they stopped publishing data, right?
Yes.
And I say, okay, but from the studies that I see, we can see from these studies what the rates would be, and like you just said, they were publishing the data. So let's just go look at that old data and look at the studies then. So that data does exist. You told me the data exists.
So part of the data was in Provincetown, Massachusetts, between July 3rd and July 17th, 469 people in that small area got COVID, according to the CDC. 74% of them were.
Can I just ask a question? You're not going to, please tell me this is not a nitpick statistic. That this is
CDC data, right?
Okay, wait. No, listen to me. When I say nitpicked, I'm not saying CDC data. I'm saying from one town, one community. I'm asking for like general numbers because you just said that this one town, 70% of the people caught it were COVID vaccinated. Which, if you were to say that out loud, most people would think would be like, oh, so actually the vaccinated are more likely to catch COVID or as likely as somebody to get COVID. But none of the studies suggest that. And I'm pretty sure if you look at that study on a grand scale and didn't nitpick it, it would show that that isn't the case. Like nationally, do you have any data nationally?
So I just want to be clear here. I will admit that I don't remember exactly what the data was on April 30th when the CD was reporting it, when they inexplicably started changing that they no longer report on.
Why would I report on something if it isn't important?
Why isn't it important? It's the argument you're making.
Okay, you're not listening to me.
Let me finish your point. The argument you're making is...
Can you just say, can you finish my point?
If you get vaccinated, then it very much decreases your chance of getting COVID. Yes. And then you point to studies that show it means that you're less likely to go to the hospital. It means that you're less likely to die. But that doesn't, but we don't know how much it reduces your effort to get the vaccine. It doesn't matter. The point is this is all red herring. I just want to get back to what you said. There is no reason that you shouldn't be requiring people that are overweight to have blood pressure medication right now. None.
We're shifting back over to. Okay.
That's the whole point.
Wait. Okay, I want to just. I want to clarify.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to clarify. Okay. Let me just clarify for chat. So, the studies, which he has not challenged, and even the studies that he has brought to me, clearly show, right, that if you catch COVID, you're if you get vaccinated, you're less likely to catch COVID, have severe symptoms, die if you're vaccinated. All the studies show that. And it seems that this data that we're trying to get now, and we're saying now is suddenly important, the CDC said it wasn't important. That's why they stopped counting it in a separate column, right? Now, what you're saying is that we need to make that data publicly available so that I could prove what I'm saying. No, you're not saying that we should have the data publicly available?
No, I'm saying that you're acknowledging then that the CDC says that the argument you're making is unimportant. The amount of people catching...
What I'm saying... Listen, I'm saying that you believe that I need to have this, that I should have this data available because it would make my argument better, because it would prove, if this was the case, that if you're vaccinated, you're less likely to catch COVID. But we can't prove it because the data is not publicly available, and it is publicly available, it's just not reported in a separate column. So my problem is that we have studies that show if you get vaccinated, you're less likely to catch COVID. Those same it's the studies you provide. I'm using your own studies here, that you're less likely to catch COVID, you're less likely to have severe hospitalization, and you're less likely to die, and by a massive amount. I'm using your own studies. And that the data that was publicly available, that they made publicly available up to May, there didn't seem to be any evidence.
Prove it. What was the data?
Well, that's what you would need to prove it. You would need to prove
why
it.
Would I need to prove? You're making a claim. And again, let me talk about what we're talking. Let's see how we got here, right? Okay. You made the rationale that because the rationale most people make is the reason that we should be able to force people to take a vaccine, like Biden said, is because they're endangering the vaccinated. And that's the problem. If they want to make poor health choices on their own, that's one thing. But the fact that they're endangering the vaccinated is what's bad. So I said, according to the numbers that you've put forward, the amount of people that died that would have been vaccinated would be about 1,500 this year. That's less than die of the flu every year. Wait, right? Yes, there's a lot of people. Real quick, please. I let you go on for a while. Okay. So there's a lot of people dying because of their own poor choices, but we're only concerned about the ones that didn't do anything wrong and that are dying. But the same way, we don't force everyone to take the influenza vaccine because people died. So why should it be different for only 1,500 people? Your response to that was, no. We need to force people for their own health as well. And I said, then why wouldn't that rationale apply to obesity? We have 300,000 people a year, which is more on average than we'll see this year that died of COVID. So why wouldn't we force employers to make them be healthy? And you said, well, because it's different, because it's a drug. We're talking about a vaccine that would be able to do something that they should force. It's an easy thing for them to do. And I said, then why not force overweight people to either get tested for high blood pressure or to take blood pressure medication?
Okay, everyone.
Real quick, we're at the very end of it here. And you said the reason is because it's not just about preventing the symptoms of high blood pressure or obesity. It's about stopping obesity itself. So we shouldn't force people to take a pill that would lower blood pressure, but we should force them. If we had a pill that could end obesity, we would force them. And so when I said, well, then what's your proof? That's just a stupid red herring anyways, that we're getting to these numbers of how much does the CDC data show that people that get the vaccine are less likely to get COVID. It doesn't matter. The analogy works. Your rationale says we should force people that are overweight to either get tested once a week at work for their blood pressure or to take blood pressure medication. That would save lives, would it not?
So if we want to get back to this, we can get back to this. I'm fine, but let me just say quickly that this thing that you cited me, this CDC study shows 74% of infected Massachusetts COVID outbreak was fully vaccinated. This is nitpicking, right? This is one area in a giant country where this is the case. We could do this with anything, right? I could, for example, I could probably find an instance where people in the city of LA, 80% of the people with AIDS had green eyes. Or I could find something like that somewhere. And then I could be like, it looks like there's a high correlation between AIDS and green eyes. And that would be like, well, that's only one city. So this is nitpicking. The next thing I want to say is my response to you is if we had something like the vaccine, which was completely free to the people who were going to use it, right? Completely free, provided by the government.
And it could, if it's completely free.
Okay. So let me finish. There's a vaccine that if you take it, your odds of being obese decrease by 90 to 95%. And if you are obese, the burden on the health system is going to be greatly reduced to a 97 to 98% decreases in hospitalization and deaths. I would 100% be in favor of forcing that vaccine. Now, blood pressure medication does not have the same effects of that high rates, and it's not provided free to every American. So there's other factors involved that would make me against it.
Well, we'll get rid of the free thing. So if it was provided free, what's your threshold then? I don't have the studies, but let's say that if we forced everyone that has high blood pressure to take blood pressure medications, we would lower the amount of hospitalizations and deaths by, say, 30%. Okay. That doesn't seem to be an unreasonable number. Is that a high enough threshold?
The thing is, this is a really strange hypothetical, but I'll follow. All of that, and we also add the caveat that they could opt out not to take it, but they'd have to take blood pressure tests. So This would be free medication. It meets my 90 to whatever percent threshold that I'm saying that makes this notable enough to do it. It removes a massive burden from a system that affects everybody. and they have a way to opt out if they want to, but it might be somewhat burdensome. I wouldn't be too against that.
Okay, yeah, and that's the tyranny that I'm talking about. And also, real quick,
did you see the extent we had to go to?
I made these arguments in 2008. I said the people that are pushing for universal health care will eventually make the argument. People that are overweight
so
are
the tyranny is giving
and we have to force them to make decisions to lower their weight, right? But nonetheless, so now I want to get to the important part of this discussion, and it's kind of twofold. And we'll skip your personal involvement. We'll go for that later. But your argument, even for the vaccinated, or for the people that have had the virus, is we should force them to take the vaccine or get tested, right? You're saying that's the caveat, or force them to get tested, right?
Correct? Yeah. I do believe that that's probably the best way to do it. And honestly, Biden thought of it before I did, and I think it was good that he was in charge of it instead of me, because I might have gone a little further.
So just real quick, just to get everything clarified before I make my point, you're admitting that the evidence seems to suggest that natural immunity is superior to the vaccinated, correct?
Yes, with the caveat that they should also get vaccinated as well.
Great. Or get tested. That's your argument, right? They should get vaccinated or get tested.
But wait, let me just ask you, because I do want to put asterisks here, because this is public health information, so I want to make sure we're not giving anybody the impression that, well, let me just go catch COVID, because then I'll be more protected, right?
Christ, no.
I just want to make sure that we're not giving that we both agree that even though that natural immunity is more powerful, and I believe, I don't know if you would, that they should also get vaccinated as well, because that makes it even more powerful, and all the studies seem to reflect that, including the one you provided to me, that we can't do natural immunity on a grand scale, because that would mean millions dead.
Anyways, right? So you think that they should get tested or get the vaccine, even though they're more protected than the vaccinated, correct?
Say it one more time. I'm sorry. I just want to be very careful.
You think that people that have had COVID and have natural immunity should get tested or get vaccinated?
Yes.
Right? And your philosophical premise to such is, even though it might be
this is but everyone, by the way. This is everyone, them included.
Okay. And so my question to you are you vaccinated? You don't have to tell me if you don't want.
Yes, I am. I have both vaccines. Yes.
Should you be forced to get tested every week?
No, because I'm vaccinated.
You're more likely to spread and catch the disease than people with natural immunity, and you think they should get tested every week?
I'm more likely to catch and spread the disease, but I think they should also get vaccinated. You know what, Rob? I'd be perfectly fine with people who have natural immunity going that route, if there was an exception, and you can prove that to me right now.
Wait a minute. What made you change your philosophical position?
Wait, 1 second. Give me a moment here. Somebody's telling me that's not true. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to talk about something a little bit different here. So that's why, give me a second here. He's right here, actually. If he's going to affect everyone with COVID, your Rob is right here. Yeah, I mean, I honestly. So would your argument be your
entire position as soon as it was an imposition to you?
Wait.
You having to get tested every week. Now you're like, you know what? Then people with natural immunity don't have to get tested.
Can I not? Okay.
No, I'll give you a chance to explain.
So why is it that instead of assuming that it's like, oh, I understand your point here, and I think it's a good point, let me agree with you, it's an imposition against you. Why is it the bad faith interpretation?
It's not bad faith. I'll give you the chance. Perhaps I'm wrong to come to that conclusion. It's the only conclusion I could think of. We just went in circles for about an hour.
Because I can explain. Because in my head, I want people to be as safe as possible within reason, right? And I am generally, I guess you could say me, somewhat of a consequentialist, right? So my thing is, I want people to be as safe as possible within reason. But if there is no real difference between somebody who has natural immunity but is vaccinated, right? Well, I mean, not vaccinated. Between somebody who is vaccinated, besides the fact that the person with natural immunity might be actually a little safer, then holding that standard for them wouldn't make sense. But 1 second. Let me read something that somebody's sending me here, because this is, again, not the conversation I was ready to have, and I want to make sure that I'm not spreading vaccine disinformation quick. Okay? Wonderful.
If you don't talk while you're looking at that, the point is, what you said, Dylan, was we talked about your philosophical interpretation that said, because it wasn't a huge imposition, even those with natural immunity that were superior protection should get vaccinated for that small added boost or get tested every week, because that was within the realm of reason of something they should be willing to do to protect everyone from this. My question is, if you're vaccinated, that makes you less protected. So why shouldn't you fall into that same criteria? And as soon as I bring it up, and it would be a personal choice that you have to make or something that you would be forced to do, you say, oh, wait a minute, maybe those natural immunity people shouldn't get tested every week. That's what just happened here.
My main point was the vaccine increases people's chances of not catching COVID. Neither of us deny that. And so I want as many people to get that as possible. Now, you have hyper focus on a particular part of the population. That is people with not vaccine immunity. They have a natural immunity, right? And there are certain studies that have shown that the natural immunity can be more powerful than the Pfizer vaccine, right? And so, with that in mind, that was a policy that I would have supported for the general population, I had not hyper thought about natural immunity when it comes to that specific part of the population. And so, when I consider that, I haven't taken that into consideration. And so, upon review, I'm like, that is a valid point. Let me see what I think about that.
But can I retort? The problem is we've been having this conversation.
You're trying to add okay. So,
real quick,
by the way, can I just say, I would actually be fine if someone told me, for at least for a certain period of time, until everybody's basically vaccinated, even having the vaccinated take tests. I'd be perfectly fine with that as well.
Okay, see, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the consistency that I'm trying to get to, right? And so when you're presented with the flaws in your philosophy or the logical extension of where it leads, then all of a sudden you.
By the way, can I ask you a question about natural immunity? So
sure.
I'm trying to right now. I'm trying to be really good faith, and I really am here because I'm considering this because this is something I legitimately haven't considered before, right? And so this would actually somewhat change my views on the situation. So assuming bad intent probably isn't the best way to convince me here. The idea that, it's an imposition on you now. I'm genuinely being like, this is information I haven't considered before. But let me ask you, what is the immunity window?
Meaning how long? Once you get...
Yes, once you've caught COVID, yes.
They're not sure, but what we've seen from most
that fucks it up.
Wait. I can ask you the same thing about the vaccine. What's the immunity window for the vaccine? Go ahead, tell me.
I don't know off the back of my head.
Okay, neither do the scientists. That's the point. So when I say we're not sure, I literally mean that's what the studies say.
So
the studies say, real quick, let me finish. What the studies have showed is this. There does seem to be some small amount of waning from both natural immunity and from the vaccine. How much of that waning in both of those cases is up for debate. But we see that there is less waning from natural immunity than from the vaccine. That's what the studies show. That if I got COVID today and you got vaccinated today and we both made it through it, that I would have more of an immunity than you. And my immunity would last longer than yours.
Wait.
That's what it seems to suggest.
What study suggests that your immunity lasts longer than mine?
For example, the Israeli study showed that.
The Israeli study. Okay. So then the idea would then be they get vaccinated once that natural immunity wears off, but we don't know when it wears off, so they should get vaccinated anyway because we don't know when. And so that would also be an argument in favor of booster shots. So if anything, you've just convinced me to be in favor of booster shots. Thank you.
I mean, come on, Dylan.
I hadn't thought about it before, but now that I thought about it, I'm in favor of booster shots.
This is not a good look.
How is it not a good look? You just convinced me of something new.
Okay, so then how soon should we have the booster shot? How many months after you've got COVID or been vaccinated should you get the booster?
Well, I don't know exactly, but I wouldn't be against it if we don't know, if we don't know, right? Then my statement to you would be we need to make the best scientific guess possible onto when we should get a booster shot.
Okay, guess.
Guess? I don't know, 6 months?
Okay, so when did you get vaccinated?
3 months, 4 months ago.
Okay, so in 2 months you're going to get another vaccine.
Well, you're asking me to guess. You just told me.
But here's the whole point. That's not what Biden's plan does, right? Biden's plan didn't say eventually once we get data that shows how long it takes for natural immunity or the vaccine.
By the way, can I read something from the Israeli study?
Sure.
It's worth noting that 2 other studies have come to different conclusions about the relative potency of natural versus vaccine-induced immunity, although each is also subject to its own limitations and is not definitive.
The report, I don't know what to tell you other than it's almost a consensus at this point. Study after study has showed. Even Dr. Fauci was asked this on television the other day by Sanjay Gupta, and he said, "What do you say to people that say that we have the natural immunity is more protective?" So, I mean, again, that's what the studies say. And also, I'm saying is this, right? Like, even in your world where it's like, okay, you're
can I ask you a question?
Real quick, and then you could ask. Your worldview that would say that even people that have natural immunity or are vaccinated should be forced, right? So I assume, let me just ask you, are you saying that Biden's vaccine mandate, you would be for forcing even the vaccinated and those with natural immunity to go through the same rigorous as the unvaccinated once we get through a point where we say that waning occurs? So if science comes out and says, yeah, after 6 months you need a booster, you would say that the vaccinated are basically the same as the unvaccinated in terms of Biden's law at that point.
Well, if in 6 months it wears off, then yes, booster shot, yes.
So if you've been vaccinated, but you haven't had your booster yet and it's been 6 months, then you have to get tested every week.
Yeah, that would make sense, because if it wears off, then it's basically you're not vaccinated. So yes, if you didn't want to get it, yeah.
So, but we have no idea how long it takes for it to wear off.
Let me ask you a question. Do people get flu shots more than twice in their life?
Yeah, every year, I think.
Okay.
I don't understand the relevance.
Well, then why would I care?
Right, but here's the
thing is, I went into this conversation not really knowing much about booster shots, but knowing that vaccines are extremely effective, so I support them, right? What I'm now leaving away from this conversation with the idea that both natural immunity and vaccines eventually at some point wear off. Eventually, right? They're going to wear off. We just don't know exactly when. So all this is done, unironically, and I don't mean this as like a donkey, even in a donkey way, has made me reconsider like the fact that I don't know much about boosters now and think like, wow, now it would be very easy for somebody to make an argument with me about booster shots and getting booster shots. Because
again, real quick. First, the flu vaccines that we take every year don't protect from the previous year's flu, but you're making the argument that the vaccine we already had is heavily protective against the Delta variant, correct?
Well, it is protective against the Delta variant.
Cool.
It's
the Delta variant
reflects that, right?
It's like 97% effective. That's what the data you presented said.
Well, I thought we were working off the Israeli study, or what? As far as I know, from all the wait. Let's just be clear. From what I've read, generally, I'm pretty sure that the vaccine is more effective than just normally walking around with nothing when it comes to the Delta variant.
I'm not disputing.
Okay,
wonderful. What I'm saying is, like with the flu, the variants every year, the previous vaccine from the previous year isn't effective against the new variant. But with the COVID vaccine, the vaccine that we originally had has been protected in the original variant, the Alpha variant, and the Delta variant. That's what your data suggests. You agree, right?
But
so
wait, but the effect and what we would have to do would be so if it is true that these vaccines wear off through time, right? And that's the whole point.
We don't know that, but
or that we might need to get booster shots for that reason, then I would be in support of a booster shots if they wear off, right? And I thought we were coming in here to talk about my hypocrisy, but I'm
about to get to it. I'm about to get to it, right?
So, wait. Let me. Okay. What?
Okay, but just to finish up on this, what we're talking about right here is the law that Biden has passed, or the executive authority that he's pushing. And that authority doesn't make exemptions, right? It treats those with natural immunity today differently than those that are vaccinated today, despite the fact that those with natural immunity have superior protection than those that are vaccinated. And if your argument is that we should do that's ridiculous. So you might say, but we don't know. Eventually, natural immunity could wane. So we should force them to get vaccinated. Okay, then we should force the people that got vaccinated 3 months ago to get vaccinated again, because their vaccine could wane as well. And the studies seem to suggest that the vaccines wane quicker than the natural immunity. So the law is tyrannical, and it isn't.
So we should get booster shots.
So you're saying booster shots? How often? Every 3 months?
You've just convinced me about booster shots. That you're saying, well, maybe let's do booster shots. I agree.
Let's hypothetically say, and I'll admit, both of us admit, in fact, not only do I admit I don't know the period that it wanes, I don't think the science agrees on it, right? You'll agree. You don't know how often or how quick it wanes, correct? The vaccine or natural immunity. You don't know that. I don't know that, correct?
1 second. I just got something that's a little. 1 second. Let me just read this quick. Somebody just sent me something from the CDC directly. New CDC study: vaccination offers higher protection than previous COVID-19 infection. In today's this is from the CDC. In today's
What's the date on it?
August 6th, so 10 days ago.
Okay.
So this is brand spanking new. So I don't fault you if you haven't seen this, right? Because I also haven't seen it, right?
Please link it so I can read along.
I did link it to you.
Okay, thank you.
1 second, let me get back to that. In today's MMWR, a study of COVID-19 infections in Kentucky among people who were previously infected with SARS-CoV-2 shows that unvaccinated individuals are more than twice as likely to be reinfected with COVID-19 than those who are fully vaccinated after initially contracting the virus.
That's different. That's not saying what you think it says.
1 second.
That's saying that people that got ill and took the vaccine are half as likely to get ill again. That's not saying that people that have the vaccine are more protected than people that have natural immunity. That's not what that's saying.
Wait, let me read this one more time. Okay.
Sure.
Wait, August was last month, not 10 days ago. Somebody's right.
That's no big deal.
And today, in Kentucky, among people who were previously infected with COVID-19, unvaccinated individuals are more than twice as likely to be reinfected with COVID-19 than those who are fully vaccinated after initially contracting the virus.
Right. So that's not saying
what this is saying.
People that were.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let me think about this some more in my head. Okay. So the idea is, in your mind, is what you're talking to me about, and this just further compounds the idea that this is further proof that somebody who caught COVID should also get vaccinated because it would help them more. But let's talk about this. So your thing is that people who have caught COVID have now a better protection from the studies that you have provided me, the Israeli study, than people who have been vaccinated, right? And therefore,
Correct.
For me to be like everybody should get vaccinated, including them, even though it gets to a higher standard, even though these people are like down here and they're like up here, it doesn't make any sense since they're already here anyway, right? That's
Correct.
what you're saying. Okay.
Correct.
So what if instead, and this was really my point at the beginning, I was just to say, because I just want to save as many lives as possible, I want to put every person within reason to the most COVID protected place possible, right? That I want every person to not catch COVID at the highest rate, right? To not catch it, lowest rate possible, right? We want COVID, least amount of COVID cases, least amount of COVID hospitalizations for multiple reasons. The amount of that our health system's overburdened, and for the fact that COVID kills a lot of people, and it's gonna hurt, it's just bad. People dying from COVID, not cool. Therefore, since I support that within reason, I can support that across the board, because the low bar that people who have already caught COVID would need to pass to just get vaccinated is not a huge imposition, and would then cut the remaining possibility of them catching COVID. Wait, let me finish.
Okay.
Cut that in half. Why would I not support that if my thing is I want to put every person in that position?
Okay.
So it's the tests, right?
You're saying or the tests.
So
okay, now real quick, a couple questions for you. One, you're not just saying what the law should be, you're also saying what we as individuals should do, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, right, given that when let's talk about the law real quick. If we should do everything possible, and you admit, although it's an imposition to get tested, it's not too big of an imposition that we shouldn't mandate it to stop people from getting the virus. Why should
that's not what I would have done, but I think it's a point for the unvaccinated people. Like I said, for example, I said it's better that Joe Biden was in there because I would have gone further and just said everybody has to do it.
Okay, so that's my question. So you would be for a mandate that says every single person, vaccinated or not, needs to get tested once a week, or their employer would be fined?
Well, no, I would be in favor of everybody having to get vaccinated without the exception of the tests. Honestly.
Okay,
now, wait, this
makes me
just want to get rid of the... Wait, the exception's fair for people with health issues.
No. I mean,
the reason I was bringing up even though I don't like the exception, the reason I always brought up the exception is because even this is more lax than what I would have wanted, and this allows people to get out of it.
Nonetheless, real quick, right? You can't change it. That Biden's directive is what it is. And even aside from that, even if we forced everyone to get vaccinated, even if 100% of people were vaccinated tomorrow, why still shouldn't we force people to be tested?
Why shouldn't we?
Right. Why shouldn't you be forced to get tested once a week, or your employer?
Because since you've gone through, since you have done what is most reasonable to deal with this already, there's no reason to put these barriers within reason in front of people anymore.
So
for example, it's the same reason I'm against everybody living inside of it too.
So you're saying it's not about actually saving lives or stopping the spread of COVID. It is, do you feel that people have taken reasonable action?
That's not good.
Okay, but listen.
Wait, listen, stop. So, dude. I'm gonna do the Kevin Cassidy thing back to you. I'm gonna do the Kevin Cassidy thing back to you.
I'll laugh.
Let's bring it down. So My thing is, I want people to be as safe with the least imposition on their life possible, right? That is the best path forward. Obviously, getting tested every week is an imposition to some regard. But I'm fine with the imposition in this Biden plan, even if it wasn't originally, as I said earlier and midway through the debate, that I would have gone with, because it pushes them towards getting vaccinated, which is the best thing you could possibly do. In all cases, if you get vaccinated, it helps your chances from catching COVID, right? And so now, all I can say is, after considering this, I just want everybody to get vaccinated, period. Because I do agree that the reason I was in favor of this imposition being in favor was to just encourage people to do the thing that's most reasonable and would stop them having to deal with this imposition, right? It's like a sugar tax in a way, right? The sugar tax is meant to collect tax money, but the purpose of it is to make you eat more healthy. The purpose of that weekly testing is not only to keep safe, but it's meant to basically push you in the direction of getting vaccinated. And so all this has done for me is basically say to me, screw the testing weekly, just you have to get vaccinated unless you have a medical exception. And in those cases, then I think maybe the exception could be possible for them. But just screw the exemption altogether.
Okay, but here's the problem, right? Even if everyone's vaccinated, you acknowledge that vaccinated people could still spread the disease, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so wouldn't it be an added level of safety to also test everyone every week?
It would, but you got to listen. The reason why I would have supported the testing isn't just for the safety benefits. In fact, that's kind of just it's serving in place of the vaccine. That's the whole point of the testing. That's why it's two options. The reason I really would want somebody to get tested is to push them towards just doing their easy, reasonable thing of getting vaccinated. That is why. So wait. So if they're already vaccinated, What?
Go ahead.
Okay.
So just to be clear, you're not saying you think that it would be a burdensome imposition to test people. You think that it is a burden.
It is to some degree, yes, and that the whole point of it.
We shouldn't do that, even if it would save some amount of lives. We shouldn't do that for the sake of doing that. We should only do it to try to gear people to get vaccinated. That's your argument.
The thing is, I think it's basically like a half measure. It does somewhat serve the purpose of the COVID vaccine, but not really. What it does is basically it keeps people safe in a way, but it doesn't keep that individual safe. They could still spread COVID at a higher rate, but it makes it easier to track those cases. It makes it easier to know if your workplace has somebody who has COVID. But the big purpose for me is to just push them to get vaccinated, the same way a sugar tax does.
But what you said,
so what I'm saying is they should get vaccinated. And that's the whole point of the reason I said it, and I said this from the beginning, is it works as something to push them to get vaccinated. And then it works as a kind of half measure as like, hey, we're going to test them instead of having them get vaccinated.
That's not the position you were making the philosophical argument here just like 5 minutes ago, where I asked you quite specifically. I said, we're not just talking legally, we're also talking personally as well. That you said that people should do as much as they can to stop the spreading of this virus.
Please note the word within reason.
So you don't think it's within reason to get tested every week?
I don't think it's within reason. If you take I actually don't think it is within reason to get tested for a disease every week. The idea of somebody getting tested for disease every week, forever, is kind of ridiculous. But the purpose of it is not supposed to be in reason. It's supposed to make you get vaccinated.
So why are we issuing an unreasonable mandate on people that have natural immunity that's superior to the vaccine?
Because it then
you're admitting that it's unreasonable to force them to get tested.
It's an unreasonable barrier for somebody who is not doing what is easy for them to do to increase their chances. For example, wait. Okay. It makes sense and is reasonable for anybody to get vaccinated, right?
Right.
It makes sense for literally any human being to get vaccinated if you've got natural immunity or not, right? Because it increases your chances and it's basically no burden to you. Zero burden. There is a burden with having every single week having to get that. I don't think it's the worst burden in the world having to get tested every single week, but it is a burden. And I think part of the reason they made it every week is so that it pushes people to get vaccinated. It is supposed to push you to get vaccinated because every week you get COVID swab, you're like, Jesus Christ, again, until eventually like, fine, I'll get it, right? That's the purpose of it. I'm in favor of it as a disincentive from not getting vaccinated. And because the easy thing to do, that is the least unreasonable, is get vaccinated. I want to push everybody to do that, including those with natural immunity.
So there's two more points, and then we'll get to the end of this, right? Like, the first is there are impositions on getting the vaccine. For example, many people I know that got the 2-dose vaccine were very sick for a day or two after they got it. We see, for example, when it comes to vaccination of children, that there's studies, I know there's studies that go multiple ways in this, but almost the rest of the world, the industrial world, doesn't mandate vaccines for children because they see data that shows more children had significant
But to be clear,
health effects.
This is a job vaccine, so this would not really affect children. I mean, I guess you could say if you're 16 working at McDonald's, maybe, but
okay,
this doesn't affect children.
But I think your idea is that we should force everyone to get vaccinated. You're against child vaccinations, then?
I've seen nothing to really suggest that we should get children vaccinated at this time.
Okay, well then I'll leave that argument out. That we won't talk about that then. But the point is, there are people that have we don't know long-term effects. There are people that have had illnesses. There are people that have had negative reactions. So suggesting that the people that already have superior defense against the virus than those that are vaccinated have to take that risk seems like nonsense. There is an imposition that comes with it.
Let's go with those things from the start. So 1 second, let me just get back to a different screen that isn't all white, so my face isn't just like a light bulb.
Sorry, yeah. No problem.
So the first thing I want to say is 1 to 2 days of sickness is not the same imposition as having to get tested every single week. Because one is one that goes on much longer. One is a sickness that may possibly last 1 to 2 days. You might. I didn't get sick. I felt a little drowsy, but I could still work. I could still go on. That if you don't get tested, if you don't get vaccinated, you have to go through that every single week. That isn't a may happen. That will happen. You have to. That's the law. So that is a greater imposition than the first thing, right?
But wait a minute. You're right, because that's the law, and that's probably a greater imposition.
Yes.
Some people would disagree, but nonetheless, I'm saying that we shouldn't force those
wrong.
people to go through that greater imposition.
Well, I do want to support them to go through that. So, actually, I want to get rid of the imposition altogether and just get them vaccinated, right? But the point of it is to partially, number 1, to keep the workplace safe since they won't get vaccinated. We have to test them. And number 2, to push them to get vaccinated, right? That's the purpose of it.
Okay.
Now, can we go? Wait. Can we go to the? Wait. What was the other thing you said? The other reason? Oh yeah, they might have like the balls might blow up or something, some long-term effect of some sort. The Nicki Minaj thing has been in the news. I've got that story in my mind.
Are you aware of any vaccine or any medication ever that doesn't have side effects?
No, it's just.
No, I know you're joking. I'm not pissy about you making. I'm just saying all medications have side effects.
All medications have side effects, right?
Correct.
But the effect of not getting vaccinated and the side effects of COVID are more brutal in 99% of cases. Therefore, I'm fine with getting mandating people.
But not the people with natural immunity.
I'd be in favor of doing that too.
The people with natural immunity are almost admitted.
Wait. We started talking about this at 8. It has been an hour and 40 minutes, and we haven't even gotten to. We have to move on to hypocrisy because I was supposed to be done talking to you 10 minutes ago.
Okay. Nonetheless, fine. We'll leave that stand where it is. I think I did very well in that portion. So what I'll say is this: you just said there. You got to announce when you have to. What you just said there. I know that's a pet peeve of yours. I thought I'd throw that out. You've said before, right? Like anyone who finishes a debate that's like, "I won, crushed it." That's kind of a pet peeve.
It sounds like a cope.
Yeah. So, anyways, so you said that it's not just about legality, that we as individuals should also do, even if it's not mandated by law, everything we can to stop the spread as long as it's within reason, correct?
We should do everything we can to stop within reason. Yeah, within reason.
Yeah. Okay. And you said that the reason that you don't think you should get tested every week is that's unreasonable because it's an unreasonable imposition, correct?
Yeah, but the point of it is to be unreasonable. I want to make people get vaccinated. Yes.
But again, even if still,
wait. I thought we were moving on to hypocrisy. This is the same thing.
We are. Listen, we are. This is what, and we're getting to it just real quick because you exist not in a imaginary world. You exist in the world as we see it, and you know that right now that you are more likely to spread the disease to someone than not if you're not getting tested every week. Correct?
I am so I'm less likely to spread it if I'm getting tested every week, yeah?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Significantly less likely to spread it, right?
statistically, I am less. I don't know how significant, but it would be statistically less likely. Yeah.
It would be more significant, more statistically than the people that have natural immunity, the inferred protection they get from the vaccine taking on top of it. Like, we know without a doubt, if you got tested, if it's one of the big arguments I make, and I'm sure this is an agreement we could have.
But
if we actually had Congress that put money into rapid tests that we could all take at home. I need to
ask you though, because you've said this like 5 or 6 times, so we are running in circles. But let me just say, you already probably agreed with me. I think you did. I don't remember that. Getting vaccinated once is less of an imposition, or even twice, even with a third booster shot, than having to get tested every week, right?
Sure.
So you've already agreed with me with that. So that's why the whole point, the whole reason, and I, again, don't even think there should be an exception for anyone from not getting vaccinated. Everyone should get vaccinated. The difference between getting tested every week and getting vaccinated is, one, in my opinion, is unreasonable burden that people have placed upon themselves. But the point of it is it's like, for example, we don't need to place the sugar tax on people. But the point of it is to push people to eat healthier. The point of that is to push them to get vaccinated. So the reason why I wouldn't be on favor of masks, social distancing, vaccine, on top of testing every week, is because that last one, I think, is an unreasonable burden. The reason I support it in a specific instance is to make them get to the highest, to take the thing that is easily accessible to them and reasonable. That's the reason I would have supported it. But I don't even, again, I want to get rid of.
Let's get to the hypocrisy point of it then. So it all hinges on what you determine is reasonable and unreasonable. Some people might think that it's more unreasonable to make them take a vaccine that they don't know the long-term effects, that's guaranteed to make them feel like crap a couple days, than to go in for a 5-minute swab of their nose once a week at work. Some people might say that they think but it doesn't matter, because what you're saying, on one hand, you're making it sound like,
wait, I thought this was about to get to the hypocrisy. This is the same thing.
This is the hypocrisy, because you're saying, on one hand, you're saying, oh, I think that we should do everything we can to stop the spread of this, unless it meets my definition of unreasonable. And so something that many people would say, it'd be quite reasonable to go get a test once a week. I've heard many people say that when they're defending Joe Biden's mandate. They're saying it's not that much of an imposition. If you don't want the vaccine, get tested every week. It's not that much of an imposition. So there are clearly people that believe it's not that much of an imposition. But you're unwilling to make that sacrifice because you're saying, I find that to be too burdensome.
Wait, let me okay, there are people who don't think it's that much of a burden. The reason why it's in place is to make people get vaccinated and to be a check on people who are not vaccinated. And what we're specifically talking about, by the way, is specifically people with natural immunity, right? We're not talking, which we, again, don't know how long it's going to last. Again, I believe that getting a COVID shot is easier than getting a swab every single week. That is what I believe. Other people are allowed to believe whatever they want, right? I think the idea, I don't think that getting a swab every week is not as much of an imposition as just once getting a COVID shot. That's much easier. And I think somebody saying that it's like the same level of imposition would be ridiculous.
Okay, you can think that, but it doesn't matter, even if you're objectively right, which this is a subjective argument, which would be more of an imposition. But even if we could say you were objectively right, it still doesn't prove, just because you're saying one is worse than the other, that you shouldn't do the other. If we should all do everything possible to make sure this isn't spreading, and you're acknowledging that getting tested would significantly lower your chance of spreading the disease, why are you unwilling to take that small amount of imposition and go ahead and get yourself tested more often?
Am I unwilling to? Wait, to be clear, I would do it legitimately if the government said that, look, this right here, what was that? That was a cute smile, Rob. You should smile more often.
Always cute. I'm always cute.
You're always cute. Look, I would be willing to get tested, right? I would be willing to do it. I don't think we need to.
Then why don't you get tested? What's stopping you?
Because I don't think we need to.
What do you mean?
I think that you should do what is most reasonable. Okay, for example, let me throw this out there, right? Let me throw this to you. I know that if I live in a bubble, my odds of getting COVID are basically zero. Right? But I don't think I need to do that. And I don't think the country needs to do that. I don't think really anyone needs to do that. Because I think there are more reasonable and easy and accessible options to deal with COVID besides us all living in a bubble. That's getting vaccinated, masks, social distancing. We all know these things. And I believe that if I have a mask, if I get vaccinated, and I do the social distancing thing, that we should be able to tackle COVID pretty easily. If everybody was to do that.
That's bullshit. Because if you do that, if you would, let me tell you, right? If you do that, if you wear a mask and you social distance and you're vaccinated, right? You're still right around the area of being as likely to spread COVID as the person who has natural immunity. And yet on that person, you're saying we should force them to do things.
Yes. Listen to what I'm saying. You're not listening to what I'm saying.
I am listening.
Okay. I believe that the testing is more of, because you have to do it every week, is more of a burden than getting a single shot. My standard, I have done it. Everything that I want everyone else to do, I have already done it. Mask, social distancing, vaccine. I've done all of that, right? I believe everybody else should do that. I believe that there are some things that are ridiculous standards. Living in bubbles, doing stuff, and there are also certain things, like when it comes to testing, that I do think is not necessary if you do everything else. Okay, that is what I'm saying. Because the thing is, I acknowledge your point that somebody with natural immunity is doing better than somebody with a vaccine, right? But my plan isn't to get everybody to this 99% threshold through a mishmashing of tactics. It is to get everybody on a personal level to the highest percentage possible of being able to deal with COVID within the most reason. That is my strategy. That's what I want to do.
But again, you're making this threshold argument. You're saying, well, if we did everything possible, that'd be like locking myself in the home. Getting tested once a week is nowhere even near the imposition.
I'm using it as an example.
So, okay, I understand, but here's the point, right? It seems funny to me that you and many other people on the left, their threshold for when we could put impositions on people is everyone that your threshold is everyone that hasn't done exactly what I've done. What I've done's good. That's enough. I shouldn't be asked to do more. What I've done is okay. Asking me to do more is an imposition.
Of course.
Everyone else is the problem. That's what you're saying.
Okay, well, you framed it in the most bad faith way possible. But yes, Rob, I believe that what I've done is probably the best way to deal with COVID. That's why I did it. I think it would be stupid for people to do things that they don't think is the best and most effective way to deal with COVID. Why would I do something that's not the best way to deal with COVID?
It's not the best. Getting tested would be better.
Within reason, Rob.
Okay, but you set that. That's the point. You set the bar for what you determine is reasonable.
Of course, everybody is going to set that bar. Everybody has an opinion on what that bar is going to be.
That's the problem.
And that's why this administration has set a bar that's different than mine. The administration's bar is lower than mine.
But that's the problem. Everyone will set their own bar for what they think successful, but the problem is people that say, I should be able to force people to take the actions that I want. But you don't want other people to force you to take actions. Now, let me ask you another question.
Let me be this way. If they did say, hey, we have significant evidence that if we all also get testing for this period of time, or we do it for this, they could also deal with it, then I'd probably just get I'd probably just get tested too.
But unironically. So individually, you can go out and get vaccinated. Nothing's stopping you. And so you would support Joe Biden coming out and saying, actually, we're going to force even the vaccinated to get tested every week. Because it could save up to 30,000 lives.
I would say, number one, I don't think we even have enough tests to do that. So let's live in a hypothetical, but let's grant a hypothetical that we have more tests now, right? How many do you think it would save 30,000 lives?
I bet it would save a lot. I bet it would save a lot of lives. I think testing is one of the most important things, because if people know they have the symptoms, then they won't go out and spread it.
Do you have any evidence to back that up, that this would specifically be the big thing that we could do to save more lives?
Yes. Why do you think they're
okay? No, let me ask you a question. But do you see what we're getting to now? Then you could also tell me, hey, but you know what, Dylan? Living in the bubble would be even more.
No, but that's
just keep going. Right? What I'm saying. Why is it? Because that's too much.
Right, that's clearly where no one's suggesting. Oh, some people are suggesting, but almost no one's saying that you should never be allowed to go out. But the argument, the imposition of getting tested once a week, if we have the available test, I don't see that would be a problem. But fine. So you draw the threshold. You say that threshold's too much. Getting tested every week, that's too much of an imposition.
And again, I've already said, unironically, I would just do it anyway. I'd be fine to
Then
do
do
that
it.
too.
Get tested. No one's stopping you.
You know what, Rob?
It's free.
I will do it when you get
Every
vaccinated.
week. Okay, so it's not really about doing the right thing to save lives. It's about proving a political point.
No,
What you're saying.
Rob. Why does everything have to be as bad faith as possible when I talk to you?
What other way is there to interpret? I'll get tested every week when you get vaccinated. What does my decision have to do with whether or not it's a good idea for you?
I was
to get
trying to
tested?
encourage you to get vaccinated. That was the reason.
Well, I have natural immunity, so I'm better than the vaccine.
So we're not going to talk about protests today, are we, Rob?
No. So let's get to the last point.
Rob,
This is the
we've
very
been
last
talking
thing.
for 2 hours.
Right. So this is the very last.
Rob, I
So
told you I
said-
wouldn't have time.
You said that it's too much of an imposition to get tested every week. Is it too much of an imposition to not go to a place where you know that people are unvaccinated and won't be wearing masks? Is that also too much of an imposition?
So, Rob, I believe that protest is vital for a democracy to function. I also believe that, yes, protest is vital for a democracy. Are you an anti-protest person?
No.
No, okay.
But-
So, protest is vital for a democracy to function. And from all the studies that I've seen, there's been no evidence, unless you can provide some, that Black Lives Matter gatherings, or any of the gatherings that I would be necessarily going to, that I have in the past, causes COVID spikes. Now, there is a difference between the one I'm going to, right? Even though I'm going to be from 2:30 to 5 o'clock be in the counter-protest section, which would align probably with the Black Lives Matter movement, there are going to be people who probably at a higher rate don't get vaccinated. Would you agree with me on that?
Sure.
Okay. You know what precautions I'm taking?
No.
I, of course, am vaccinated. Of course, will be wearing a mask. And I'll be doing my best to stay 6 feet away from people as possible. Of course, if somebody bumps into me, sucks, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to be taking precautions.
So,
But I believe,
I
I believe that the function and necessity of protest is necessary for democracy to function and reporting as well. For example, I believe that it probably wasn't the best thing to fight COVID for somebody to travel to the Middle East to cover the pullout from Afghanistan. But I don't think anybody would expect anybody to have the position that we should ban travel to Afghanistan for the need of reporting because of COVID. Nobody would hold that position. It would be unreasonable. I would also say it would be unreasonable to stop one of the most basic functions needed for democracy to function. For example, I've seen what this has caused in places like Hong Kong, where the Chinese government has used vaccine restrictions as an excuse to crack down on protests.
Okay, so 2 things to say here. One, would you agree that the most masks could be okay? We don't know how effective they are. Vaccine could be okay, but the best way to protect yourself from getting COVID and spreading COVID would be to not go in groups where COVID's likely to be, and when people are likely to be unvaccinated, correct?
Well, I think the best thing anybody can do is get vaccinated. But besides
That's
that,
not true.
I would say
that's not true. That's not true. Even if you're vaccinated, you would have less of a chance.
again,
to get COVID
okay.
not being
Let me go back. Let me go back to Fantasyland for a second. Yes, I would agree that everybody just staying home forever and never doing
That's
anything
not
would
what
be the
we're
best way to. Well, when we talk about these crowds and what
You're
would be
intentionally going into a crowd
listen
with
what I'm
no-
saying though.
won't
But
be wearing
I
masks and be
said I
vaccinated.
believe that protest is the beating heart of a democracy, right? I
Okay.
believe if we stop protest, democracy starts to crumble, quite literally. If you start cracking down on protests, if you start cracking down on just political demonstrations, I even also similarly believe that with churches. I don't think I actually ever really truly agreed with the stopping of church gatherings. I believe there could have been some restrictions put in place on like 6 feet apart, masking, stuff like that's fine, but I don't even agree with that. So this isn't just a thing I hold for protests. And I don't even really go to church like that, but it's something to hold for churches as well because I think freedom of religion is something that's equally important. But when it comes to protest, I believe that's a beating heart. So I think that's a necessity. That's something we're going to have to do in a democracy. You quite literally have to protest. People think of it like you don't need to get out and protest, but I believe that is necessary for a country to grow and necessary for a country to quite literally not collapse is for it to check its problems, which people do through protests. Therefore, people should do it in the most safe way within reason.
Do you think sometimes protests are justified in doing things that are unsafe, like maybe standing in the middle of the road because the freedom that they're fighting for is more important than that law, even though that law would keep them safe?
Yes.
Okay, so then people are protesting the vaccine.
Okay.
So why don't they have the right to protest that vaccine?
I think
It's
that,
a
wait,
fundamental
I
function of
think,
democracy.
let me say, I think they have the right to protest the vaccine. I think they do have the right to do it.
Mhm.
I just think it's really stupid
Okay.
And there will be
But you
penalties
think the
for it.
government, so you think the government should force them? That's what you
Wait.
said, that they should be forced to end their protest.
Okay. So I believe that, people break the law and do risky things all the time in protests, right? For a great example would be, you know, the Buddhists who lit themselves on fire? Like,
Yeah.
they broke the law and they did something immensely brave, right?
Mhm.
And I even believe that breaking the law is important in society. But that doesn't mean we should start allowing law breaking, because sometimes people break the law for stupid causes and in stupid ways, right? Would you agree with that? For example, somebody could break the law and stop traffic and do all these things that eventually are going to get you arrested for racist reasons, say, like the Klans members. If a bunch of Klans members started blocking traffic, I would be like, yes, the cops should arrest them, right? And so in my mind, why I don't think they're the same as Klan members, if a bunch of anti-vaxxers started breaking the law while protesting, yes, they should also have to face those penalties. Just like I believe that same standard is most likely going to be held for left-wing protesters when they break the law.
But listen, the entire idea that you're talking about protests being necessary for democracy, it's the idea that unpopular speech needs to be protected, right? Like, we wouldn't just allow protests for popular issues.
Wait,
right?
let me clarify something for chat, because I think chat's not understanding what I'm saying. So when it comes to protest and breaking the law for protests, we can't just suddenly make rioting legal. Right? We're not going to make rioting legal. Why? Because then that causes chaos. That's going to cause a lot of businesses to be damaged, even if they're rioting for a good cause, right? Even if they're doing it and it ends up having a positive effect. A riot could possibly, let's say there's a riot and then a monarchy falls. People could say that has a positive effect, but that doesn't mean you legalize rioting. You can't legalize rioting. Number one, people could riot for a bad reason. They could go on and burn down the town so racism could be enshrined into law more securely. And there's also the fact of the damage it could cause. I'm fine with the law being broken in protests in certain examples for causes that I think were good, and I'm going to be against the law being broken for causes that I think are bad. So I'm going to be like, wait a second, Dylan. But that seems hypocritical. So you think your side should be able to break the law, but the other side should not be able to break the law. That's what.
If I get to my point, right, you would acknowledge that protests. I'm not talking about law breaking. Even when you say protest is the beating heart of democracy, that would be the right to protest, even for dumb shit. Correct?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so then who are you to want to end the protest of people that are protesting the vaccine, but say that your protest that's also likely to increase spread is legitimate?
Now, I believe the law should treat people who break it the same, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
The law is irrelevant to the issue.
This is a really fucking difficult concept to explain. So when people break the law and move against the system, they can do it for a variety of reasons, some good and some bad, right? And I'm going to be in favor, as somewhat of a determinalist and a consequentialist, of people breaking the law to get us to better places. Great example would be not the bus boycott, but Rosa Parks not standing up, right? I'm in favor of people breaking the law in instances like that to break down unjust systems, right? I'm not in favor of people breaking the law, for example, to enact racism or bring back terrible, terrible shit. You understand what? For example, I believe that people protesting a draft during World War II is a lot different than somebody protesting a draft during the Vietnam War, even though it's the same action. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? This is a very actually difficult.
I do, but it's not on point to what we're talking about, and here's why. You're not saying the law that we're talking about is forcing people to end their protest. You're making the art. There's two separate conversations here. You're saying,
by the way, I don't think they should not be allowed to protest, by the way.
But that is their protest. Their protest is not putting something in their body that they don't want. That's their protest.
Well, yes,
that's
but okay, wait.
Of democracy.
Yes, but let's say my protest, right, was burning down your business, right? I can be in favor of protest, but then also say, I think this is too far when it comes to protest. And I can also think that a protest is bad for a certain cause, right? For example, I'm in favor of protesting for Black Lives Matter. I do not think I should go down burn down somebody's business for Black Lives Matter, right?
Okay.
So I can think they're allowed to protest the vaccine mandate. I just think they should do it vaccinated.
Right. So you're saying that they should have to be forced to
If somebody wanted to protest, if somebody would want to protest in favor of, say, murder, they would have to do it while not murdering anybody. Right?
Okay,
That's
so
the thing about thing about protesting for things that are illegal to be legal, right? You can't do those illegal things while protesting. And for example,
real quick then. Yeah. So if Joe Biden issues an executive order that says anyone that's out in the street in DC this weekend should be arrested, you'd say, well, that's fine. Then people shouldn't be out in the street.
No, of course. No.
Because it's against the law.
No, because laws don't dictate morality. This is why there's a very different concept.
Exactly.
Laws don't dictate morality. Wait. But I also think it is immoral for them to not get vaccinated.
Okay, so here's the point. But why is it immoral?
I believe it is immoral because it is harming others.
Okay, and you're more likely to harm others by going to the protest you're going to.
I believe that the coverage of the protest and bringing attention to the protests and making sure that locals turn out in opposition to this group, which is advocating, in my mind, for insurrectionists, that's a totally different discussion, right? I think that benefit outweighs the negatives.
The benefit of fighting against
just like I believe that we should. Let me add one addition. Just like I believe the benefits of everybody going to work and working every day for the economy, for people being able to feed their families is more important than the potential risk they could have from traveling from point A to point B in either a car accident, getting mugged, just any of these things. I believe that benefit outweighs the risk there too. Like, it's just cost-benefit analysis.
So what it comes down to is, and so this is where we get to the hypocrisy and everything. You're intentionally putting yourself in a position. Your mask, by the way, masks don't protect you; they protect other people. So you're going out with people that
because if I thought I had because if I have COVID, I don't want to give it to people who are not vaccinated.
So you're intentionally putting yourself in a situation where you're far more likely to get COVID, right?
Yeah, I am. I don't know. Say it's far more like it is a possibility that could happen.
Okay. Well, it's far more likely than if you don't go, right?
Yes.
But you're willing to accept that risk, and it's not just a risk to you because if you get it, you can spread it.
Just like I would be far more likely by walking to work, or getting on the metro to get to work, because that's how I have to get to work.
Wait a minute. So you're acknowledging that your chance of getting COVID is the same as if you're walking to work than if you're going to a Trump rally?
I'm not saying it's the same. But I'm saying that what I'm making a distinction here is the odds of getting COVID increase when you leave your home in most cases, right?
And it's going to increase.
Therefore, come on, you gotta let me finish my sentence.
Yeah, go ahead.
Therefore, I understand that the risk of catching COVID is different from when I'm in here or out there. But I believe that there are also things to do in society that are so important to do that the increases are worth it. But if I can nullify those increases to the best of my ability, I will. That's why I got vaccinated. That's why I'm going to wear a mask. And that's also why I'm going to try my best to be at 6 feet distance. Also, somebody in
chat. Tested when you're done?
You know what? Actually, yes. I will get tested when I'm done.
Good. And you should get tested every week. And also, so I'll just finish up with this. This is what I talk about with it. You can see the entire way. There's no authoritarian, like any health issue. We're literally talking about we can force people to take medications to lose weight. We talked about it at some point. What you can see is people that want to say that they want the government to force things on other people almost always say, except what I'm doing. Even if I'm jeopardizing people, that's an acceptable risk because what I do is important. But other people, what they think's important, that doesn't matter.
Makes no
sense.
Even
if it's objectively people, well, let me finish. Even if it's objectively people that are more protected than Dylan, such as those with natural immunity, he still says that the government should force things upon them anyways. They should, because Dylan feels that he's comfortable and he can break guidance and he can jeopardize people in more significant ways. And he shouldn't have to suffer through impositions like not going to this rally or getting tested. But everyone else that doesn't do exactly what he does should face what the government does and be under the penalty of law. That's what the hypocrisy is.
Okay. So Rob Noerr doesn't know what hypocrisy means.
Sure.
Just like I'm going to be as good a faith to you as you were in that discussion when you said that I don't care about like all the people dying, right?
I didn't say that.
You did. You said they, which included me because you're using me as the example.
You're increasing. I didn't say you didn't care about people dying. I said you're increasing the risk.
They don't care about COVID. That was what you were saying. They don't care about COVID and you included me. What did you mean by that?
Oh, in my video the other day?
Yes. And you used me as the example. What do you think that says?
Right. You don't care about doing everything possible to save COVID. That's bullshit. You don't care if you're engaged in behavior that makes more people likely to get COVID. You don't care. Your personal choices are more important than other people's.
You did say that I don't care.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's explain one more time. I am holding everyone to my standard. Everyone. I am saying everyone should get vaccinated. I want that to be the standard, that everyone gets vaccinated. Rob, am I vaccinated? Okay. I didn't hear it, but you said yes. Now,
I said yeah.
Okay. I have worn masks in public. Have you ever seen any example in recent memory of me being in public, not wearing masks, out anything where I should be wearing a mask? No, right? No. I was even one of the only people at a recent election that I took part in wearing the mask. Even when it's everybody else, I will wear the masks. I will also do the best of my ability to stay 6 feet. Even in that one time at the riot, at the Million MAGA March, where people start fighting, you see me staying 6 feet away from people in the middle of a riot where people are getting punched. That's how conscious I try to be about this thing. This is the standard that I hold other people to. These are the things I expect other people to do. What you're asking me to do is to hold myself, that you're trying to push me to hold a standard for myself and for others, which I don't hold, when it has to come with this testing thing. If I don't hold other people to that standard or myself to that standard, you're saying, but this would increase it. Well, I hold everybody is going to, of course, have a subjective personal standard they hold themselves to when it comes to COVID. And my personal standard that I've always held and I've always been public about is vaccinated, mask, social distance. I am not going to hold anyone else to a standard further than that. If they want to, on a personal level, they can. That's the standard I hold other people to. And even when it comes to the testing, I even framed it as a way from the beginning of this conversation, not that that was even an end goal for me to have people have to do testing, but as something that pushes them to get vaccinated, because I don't even like that, really. I understand it, but the more I think about it, the more it's just like, fuck that, just make them get vaccinated. So I'm not holding anybody to a standard that I haven't held for myself at all. You're saying that this is something that could increase everybody else's chances, but there's many things that it could increase other people's chances that I'm not telling people to do. Like stay in their house all the time and everyone has to always telecommunicate from home. And that is something, is a real thing. The bubble is a joke, but that's a real thing. Everybody could have to telecommunicate and telework from home. Is that possible for all jobs? No. Is that reasonable for all jobs? No. And so I'm not going to hold that standard because there's other things that need to be kept up to in a society besides just COVID cases. But I think that masks, social distancing, and vaccines places no unreasonable burden.
Okay, so the definition of hypocrisy, the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. Now, you said in the context of this conversation that we should do everything possible, even if it's not mandated, to stop the spread of COVID as long as it's reasonable. That's what you said. Now, the hypocrisy comes with, it is clear in an objective standard that you are subjectively claiming what's reasonable and not to benefit yourself. You're being a hypocrite not based on, listen, let me finish.
Provide proof.
So you're being a hypocrite because you're violating the philosophical underpinning for why you're doing what you're doing. Similarly, let's say I would say this. I find it immoral to take other people's possessions. And then I end up stealing apples. And you're stealing oranges. And I say, that's terrible. You're stealing oranges. You're stealing oranges. That's horrible. And you would say, but Rob, you're stealing apples. And I say, oh, my stance has always been it's okay to steal apples. It's okay to steal apples. It's the underpinning that it's wrong to steal that I'm violating. Just because you say, I include these things to say, oh, it's okay for me to have this risk. It's okay for me to do this risk. This is too much of an imposition for me. But I can force impositions on other people. That's the hypocrisy.
If apples were as important as protesting is to a democracy, you might have a point. Also, there is the fact that the protest... What do you mean? Do you think... Wait. The thing is, what you're saying is not to say... For example, like if I say stealing is wrong, right? But then there's evidences of people starving to death and they steal a piece of bread, I'm going to have a different standard for that than if somebody just randomly stole an apple. The difference is that the burden here is different. I believe the burden on society for stopping protest, the burden on society for stopping or severely restricting freedom of religion, the burden on society when it comes to stopping reporting, when it comes to our fundamental freedoms, those are things that should not be just thrown away. And if there's simple things we can do to do these things in a safe manner, I'm going to be in support of that because these are things that need to happen. Reporting still needs to happen. Protest still needs to happen. These are things that need to be done in a healthy society. People still need to go to work and get job done. People still need to grow food. People still need to do a ton of things. But these are all things that while we're doing it and not staying in our homes, we are increasing our chances of getting COVID. But I believe that the mask, vaccine, and social distancing is helping society in a massive way, and that these other things that I'm talking about, the restriction of work, the restriction of protest, restriction of all these things that are necessary for society to function on a basic level, those are unreasonable burdens, and they are not burdens I hold anybody else to. I'm not saying to a Trump supporter that they can't go protest. If a Trump supporter wants to go protest, they're allowed to protest. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be allowed to. I'm not saying that a Biden voter should not be able to. I'm also, as I've told you before, I was never fully comfortable, and I still don't really know my position on the idea of these restrictions, very burdensome restrictions on churches, because I believe freedom of religion is necessary for society to function. I am holding everyone to my standard. Now, you're saying that is hypocritical? How?
Yes. Again, I've explained how it's hypocritical, and let me make another point that you're making here, right? When you talk about the importance of protest, I don't disagree. But will you acknowledge that that's not the only fundamental right that's important?
Of course not.
Okay, so there's other fundamental rights. You mentioned one, the ability to go to work. And yet we're putting mandates on who should be allowed to go to work based on medical procedures they have. Should we put mandates on who should be allowed to protest based on their medical procedures?
I would, unironically, if somebody is gathering in a big public setting and they're not vaccinated, I can understand there being laws put in place to restrict that, yes.
Okay, so when you talked about vaccine issues
wait. I also believe people should, listen
to
me. I believe people should be able to drive, but if they decided to drive in a reckless manner, right, by like swerving off the road, running over 3 people, right, that they should not be driving.
It's a different analogy, right? You just
both put other people at risk. Both of those are things that people need to do. Those are both things that people need to do to get to function in society. Usually, driving, there's also like other forms that they could do in some sense. But if you live in rural America, you do not get to jump on the metro train, right?
Okay, so you acknowledge
let me finish the point. So those are both things that you need to do. But if you're doing those things recklessly in a manner that can hurt others, to an extreme extent, yes, I'd be in favor of restricting that.
Okay, so how would you restrict it? Should we force everyone who goes to a protest to be tested? Should you have to have a vaccine passport to go to a protest?
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
Isn't it true that Black people are the least likely population to be vaccinated?
I'll just say sure. I don't know for sure.
So your suggestion would be that we should stop disproportionately Black people from protesting because they're dangerously driving, correct?
Wait. Okay, listen to what I'm saying. I don't think that we should be setting up stations to test them. But if I do know that somebody's going to be going to a large public gathering unvaccinated, yeah, we can do and stop that. But it's the same thing like loitering. If we know somebody's going to loiter in advance, then yeah, you send out a cop, I guess, to stop them. But having cops at every station to stop anybody from loitering, it's not practical. On a moral sense, I'm against it, but it's not something that could be enforced.
You mentioned that there was another country, I forget what country you said, that was using COVID as an excuse to crack down on protests. What country was that?
China.
I thought you said a country in Africa, but you said China? I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was China. I said China.
Okay, so you would be okay with China cracking down on protests by saying, well, we're going to vaccine passport everyone.
No, you didn't. Okay. Please listen to me. I am against people morally not going to large protests while not vaccinated due to how easy it is to do and how much of a safety precaution it is, right? But there is no way to practically enforce stopping people from going to protests unvaccinated. Wait. So you believe that we can test all those people, every single person that goes in there, in time, get them that information before getting the next person in there? That's a reasonable thing we can do. There's a reasonable thing to test 50 to 100,000 people during a mass protest and give them like immediate results with a high
Okay,
efficiency.
well, two things. You're right. That wouldn't make sense because I don't know that we have enough. Now, there are tests, the fast rapid tests do work within 20 minutes. So we could theoretically do it. But I'll concede that maybe that would be unreasonable. But what we
Yes.
could do is test everyone as they're leaving, and we could mandate vaccine passports. Why not?
Wait, test everyone. The same amount of crowds would be entering as in leaving.
So the problem is not getting the results in enough time. We'd set stations up that you have to come through and we test you. And real quick, didn't you say that the right to go to work is an important right?
Yeah, the right to go to work is an important right. Yes.
Okay,
But can we stay?
so
Wait. I'm not going to let. We prove it. We got to do one thing at a time, okay? So let's stay on this thing about the protests before we get the right to work, okay? So the protests, the same amount of people entering the protest are going to be leaving the protest. So testing them as they leave wouldn't work for two reasons. Number one, you couldn't prevent the crime if they did it then. They already protested, so if they had COVID, they already spread it. That's the one thing. The second thing is, it's the same issue you would have with them entering, you'd have if they'd leave. You'd still have to test the same amount of people, and the same amount would be the same problem.
Okay, that's
so
what's
the more
problem?
reasonable,
slightly inconvenient.
The more reasonable thing would be the COVID passport. So I'm actually, in principle, wouldn't be against that. The only risk I would have is the idea of the government being able to be like, okay, so this person went to the protest, this person went to the protest, this person went to the protest. That's concerning to me.
Well, it's not concerning to force medical procedures on people as well. Now,
Wait, no. Let's not pretend those are the same thing. Let's not pretend. Wait. No. It's not the same thing for a government to have a list of those who went to a protest in a certain city about whatever issue that it is for people to be made to get a vaccine across the board, everyone. Those are not the same things because the government can use those for different purposes. One is to limit COVID. The other could be used to suppress dissent.
So you're saying that hypothetically...
That's why I don't think that's within reason, because I don't want the government to have lists of everybody that went to a Black Lives Matter protest.
So what you're saying is, hypothetically, the government could be nefarious if they had a list of everyone that went to a protest, but the government couldn't hypothetically be nefarious in forcing people to inject certain medications and having a list of what medications people have injected. They couldn't use that for nefarious reasons.
Wait, but everyone would be injected. That's the point of the COVID vaccine. So how would they use it to persecute anybody?
Well, that's not. Well, we could see that not everyone's injected, and you admitted that we'll never get to 100% vaccinated.
And I want to make those people get vaccinated. So if the idea is going to be, well, then you're persecuting those who are unvaccinated, make them get vaccinated. I'm fine with doing that.
If you're going to say, no, I don't want the government or testing people or having a passport to go protest because I'm afraid they could be nefarious, but I fully support the government forcing people to take the medications they say we should have to take and having lists of who's taken those medications and punishing those that don't agree. You can't see the nefarious ways that the government could do that?
I would have to be shown evidence that they would do that. I would
Show me the evidence.
Let me finish. I would need to be shown evidence, right? That this vaccine, number one, isn't a good thing to do. It isn't good for these people to get vaccinated, and that this could be used to target a specific group of people. Giving the government just lists of people who went to a specific protest, I wouldn't trust any government in the world with that power. I will trust governments in the world with the power to know that everybody's been vaccinated or to give people this type of medical procedures or these types of, not procedures, but vaccinations. Not because it's just our government, but it's all governments across the world that is doing this, number one. Number two, there's been independent studies into this, all of this. When it comes to the idea of giving the government a list of people who went to a protest, just giving them a full list, that isn't something that happens all around the world. That isn't something that has been studied to see the effects of that. And that is something that could be easily used for nefarious purposes, to know that everybody that went to a protest and target them.
So it's just funny to me that concern of government overreach and abuse, and you're totally for
Yes, Rob. There's different standards for government overreach for different people. For example, I believe that standards on cars is perfectly fine government overreach. I don't believe they need to know my penis size.
When people said "my body, my choice," what were they talking about? What was the Fourth Amendment reason given for
It's abortion? A slogan. I don't care.
Right. Well, the reason was that you have a right to privacy in your medical decisions, correct?
Yeah, I assume.
Okay. Why do you think that right to privacy exists? Don't you think that the people that said that you should have that right to privacy understand that there's potential government abuses if they have the right to look in at all of your medical information?
I don't understand. What did you just ask me, Rob?
If there's
Can we do 8 minutes of this, by the way? We've been doing this 2.5 hours. I was not supposed
right,
to go this long.
right. If we understand that the reason that there's a medical right to privacy that exists, or that people talk about that would seem to intuit that there's a reason that people have that right to privacy, meaning that the government could abuse if they were able to see everyone's medical information, correct?
That the government could abuse everybody's medical information. I assume so. I mean, where are you dragging me down to? That this could be similarly. Rob, the problem is that the idea of being able to use the fact that everybody has been vaccinated against the population is going to be much more difficult than be able to use the fact that 10,000 people went to a single protest. Giving the government those two lists entitles the government, if they were in both cases to be abusive, to do totally separate things, and it would be have totally different effects. That's why I am perfectly fine with a vaccine mandate in one hand, but not okay with the government just having lists of everybody who went to a protest on the other hand, right?
I think that the potential, although you could be right that having a list of people who went to the protest certainly could be used for nefarious government reasons, I think that it's equal or possibly even more dangerous to give the government the authority to tell people that they have to take drugs that were just created 6 months ago in order to be able to do all the functions of normal everyday life. Wait,
they were not just created for, they were FDA approved, and they were already clear for emergency approval. And the thing is, unironically, it's not even just you were just forced to take it. You can, if you really don't want to get vaccinated, I guess you can. It's just going to be difficult for you to function. It's just you can't function in society, right? But the same thing has been true for school vaccines. The same thing has been true for many things that we do in society. But specifically, we'll just stick on school vaccines. We'll talk about smoking in businesses. We could talk about seatbelts, right? These things, people can hold those positions and be in favor of those positions, while also not be in favor of giving the government a list of people who went to a protest. It isn't hypocritical for them to be in favor of seatbelt, but not the government having a list of everybody with this.
Are you for vaccine passports and things that aren't protests, like to go out to eat? You for a vaccine passport for that?
A vaccine passport to go out to eat. If a business requires it, yeah.
Like the government, like a local government, like New York, saying that you need a vaccine passport.
I haven't really thought about it, so I don't know.
I mean,
I don't think it's an unreasonable barrier.
You don't think?
I guess I wouldn't have any reason to be against it.
You don't think providing ID to go to grocery shopping would be unreasonable?
I'm pretty sure that in a lot of businesses we're already carded. In many businesses, like if you go to like a bar, you get carded if you want to get alcohol. If you go to an alcohol, if you go to like any like person who sells alcohol, you get carded if you want to buy alcohol. Many of these places,
we're talking groceries.
We're talking groceries.
Yeah, like you want to go to Walmart to buy groceries. So you don't think an ID? You think that's fine to make people provide an ID to be there?
I have no problem with that. No.
So we're agreeing that it's not racist to provide an ID then, correct?
No, I don't think it's racist to provide an ID.
Okay, so voter ID would be perfectly reasonable.
If it was not historically implemented in a racist manner, of course.
Okay, but why is it racist? Because
wait, to be clear, the Supreme Court ruled that voter ID laws that have been implemented, for example, in South Carolina, or was it North Carolina? Doesn't really matter. Same thing. Were unconstitutional due to how they've been racially applied. There's nothing inherently racist about IDs. It's how they were specifically targeted. What they would do is they would be like, okay, we got a list of all the IDs in the state here. Okay, let's look. So this ID seems to be used by majority black people. So we're gonna make that one not allowed. But this ID seems to be used by majority white people. Let's make that one allowed. But the thing is, the legislation that was ruled unconstitutional when it comes to voter IDs didn't even mention race a single time. But it was targeted and so lopsided when it comes to its effect on black people trying to vote that it was ruled unconstitutional.
Right. So the traditional forms of ID, like driver's license, the argument was black people are less likely to have it, and therefore to ask them to provide that form of identification would be racist, correct? That's what the court ruled.
I'm trying to remember the exact ruling of we can look this up right now so we have no confusion.
Right. So to ask them to provide that same ID to go to Walmart seems like that would be racist.
The same ID?
Right. You think black people are less likely to have an ID?
And that's why we should mandate them to get vaccinated. Exactly. So it wouldn't have that racist effect.
So, okay, well, how are they going to get the vaccine passport? They have to have an ID to get the vaccine passport, right?
When you go get vaccinated, you get the
Right.
vaccine passport.
Right, and you have to have an ID to go with it to know that the passport.
Yeah, so you do not. So you make sure that the IDs that are made available. For example, here's a great example. In Texas, there are school IDs that people have available at schools, but they don't allow those to be used when voting. And they specifically targeted that because, number one, young people don't usually vote Republican, and they didn't want those young people to be voting. And also, I think it was a higher percentage of minority Americans, specifically black Americans in the state of Texas, that had that. I'm trying to remember the specifics because this is stuff working off. We're all the way over to a voter ID conversation. So again, wait, listen to what I'm saying. I'm fine with the ID, the uses of IDs to like be used like generally because IDs are not. What's so funny, man?
Did you go get a vaccine? Did you have to provide an ID?
No.
You didn't have to?
I don't think so. I did a pop-up with PG Changemakers. I don't remember having
how are we going to how will we know then if people are forging their vaccine passports?
How do we know if people are forging their vaccine passports?
How would you know? If I show up to work and I say I have a piece of paper that says Rob Noerr got the vaccine, how would they know that I really got the vaccine? If I could have sent someone else to go get the vaccine, or I could have just like without the ID to know that the person that's telling you.
Wait. Let's back this up. Okay, so vaccine passports. You don't need an ID to get a vaccine passport when you get vaccinated. You just tell them their name, and then they give it to you, right?
I don't know. I wasn't vaccinated. You're telling me
that's
that
how I got vaccinated.
ID?
Okay, so I was confused about this discussion why we were having it. So again. Black people wouldn't have to provide an ID. They wouldn't have to provide an ID, so this would not have a racist effect. The reason it's having a racist effect is because black communities are getting underserved in one instance, and number two, vaccine hesitancy in the black community is higher on average. You could tie this to a lot of historical problems, specifically like experimentation that's been done on black people when it comes to, I think it was syphilis is the example I'm thinking of historically. So this would not even have to do with so there would be no racist application when it comes to IDs.
But to get the vaccine passport, you would have to be able to provide some sort of ID, right? That's the only way it would work. Otherwise, the passport's.
But I got vaccinated and never provided one.
Did they give you a passport?
They did. You want me to go get it?
Well, no. But then the entire operation's bullshit, anyways.
Okay.
Well, how are you going to stop?
What do you mean?
If I took your vaccine passport and walked in somewhere and said I'm Dylan Burns.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant okay. I thought you meant like, when you get vaccinated, you need to provide them an ID, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that's the only way.
I get. Wait. So if your argument to me is that we need to like crack down on the anti-vaxxers when they're walking into these places because we need to make sure people are provided with IDs. Is that what what are you arguing right now?
My argument is that I assume that there's some sort of identification that needs to be provided to prove that you are the person that got vaccinated.
Okay, so you're not asking that when you get vaccinated, you need to give them an ID to get vaccinated.
I don't know. There has to be. It's somewhere along the. Okay, well, I don't know, but I'm saying somewhere along the line there has to be an ID provided, or the passport's worthless.
Can I just double check to make sure?
I don't know. I didn't get vaccinated.
I'm pretty. Let me just ask chat. You don't need to provide an ID to get vaccinated, do you? Because I never provided an ID. I remember I brought my wallet specifically because I thought you might need one, and I didn't. And I provide a piece of ID or 2 pieces of documents with my name and address, but you live in Canada. Okay, that's Canada. No. Okay, people are saying no. Most people are saying no, you don't need to get one. You provide an ID to get vaccinated.
So, like, the law...
I guess the reason why is because there's not, like, a major motivation for many people to, like, be fraudulently producing these documents. Now, there are some people in this country that believe, like, in vaccine, like, hesitancy, I guess. They, like, believe that the vaccine's bullshit, and so they would forge these documents. How to deal with that? I don't know the exact answer to that question. I guess you could bust up the shipping operations, like do busts and stuff of people trying to do these fake vaccine passports because they are forging government documents.
less. Like, I don't know exactly what it was, but we know that black people are proportionally less likely to have the vaccine, therefore the vaccine passport. So anything that requires doing daily functions like going to get groceries that requires a vaccine passport would disproportionately harm black people.
But as far as I know, I didn't need an ID card to get vaccinated, and I've never been, when asked for vaccine card, has anybody ever also asked for my ID? I've never had that happen.
That's a separate. I was just inquiring. I don't know about whether or not you have to provide
it out there.
But I am saying though that the same rationale is that if you require a passport, even if you don't need a driver's license to get the vaccine passport, we could see that disproportionately it's black people that are most likely to not be vaccinated.
Yes.
So any law that requires a vaccine passport for day-to-day functions like getting groceries would disproportionately affect black people.
Okay.
And you're okay with it?
Well, the thing is, I want to mandate everybody get vaccinated, right? So I believe in the long run that this law is going to benefit black people because it's going to get them vaccinated so less of them will die or have long-term negative health effects.
Okay, but so that's not the reality right now, and there are places like New York.
Wait, it's not the reality that if black people got vaccinated, they are less likely to die of COVID?
No, it's not the reality that 100% of people are vaccinated.
Yes.
And so right now, if we're instituting vaccine passport laws, those are disproportionately affecting black people.
I believe. Okay, so what you're trying to tell me right now is that this is going to negatively affect black people because since they're vaccinated at a lower rate, wouldn't have these passports to go into these businesses, right?
Correct.
Solution: get them vaccinated.
Okay, well they don't. They're not right now.
Okay, then
We've been trying to work on that solution.
Okay, then do it. Then enact a vaccine passport. There you go.
Okay, so you're against vaccine passports now until everyone's vaccinated.
Not really. I think do it now, but get them vaccinated as fast as possible. The thing is, it's going to be kind of hard for a population not to get vaccinated if you have to do it to go to school, you have to do it to get to work, you have to do it to do many of these things. So if we enact a vaccine mandate, we should see, and I would want to get rid of the exception as well, we should see a spike of black people getting vaccinated. I have no reason to not believe that's the case. So we should see the amount of black people getting vaccine passports spike.
So, for example, I talked to one black guy that didn't get vaccinated, and
the other thing we could do is just have them not get vaccinated, and then they die at a higher rate than the rest of America, which would also affect them in a higher percentage racist manner. So there's no way to avoid that. I think this way gets over the bump quicker, and then saves more lives.
Okay, so again, I just reiterate this story. I know it's anecdotal, but a black friend of mine said that he wasn't getting the vaccine because of things like Tuskegee, and he has a massive distrust, including the belief that our system is systemically racist, and so he has a distrust. Now, I told him, I was like, I don't think that the vaccine's anything like the Tuskegee experiments. I think I think reasonable people could say that there are reasons that I question whether or not the vaccine's right for me, like you have natural immunity or you're young and healthy and things like that. I don't believe that this is something intentionally setting out to kill people. I don't think that's what the vaccine is. So I told this person that, but he still said, nope, I just don't trust the government. So it just seems strange to me that we tell that person, shut the fuck up. You have to do what we tell you. We'll make your life a living hell until you do what the same government you don't trust tells you what to do. Similarly, you have fears of the government when it comes to a vaccine passport for protesting. You say, no, I'm not for that because I have a reasonable fear of the government. But you're telling people disproportionately in the black community, your fears don't matter. I know what's best for you, and we're going to force you to do this.
Can you rephrase that in a less condescending way?
Sure. You're telling people in the black community, you're mistaken, and so we have to make your medical decisions for you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think it reeks of arrogance and bigotry and authoritarianism. That's what I think.
Bigotry?
But
wait.
Yes!
Now, this is some identity politics I didn't expect from the great Rob Noerr. So my thing is,
I learned from the masters, right?
Now, first I want to say I would love to. I'm happy that you acknowledge that you have one black friend, and I'm happy to hear that. And you're making progress. You have at least three. So, okay, that's the first thing I want to say, right? My standard is I want everyone to get vaccinated. Literally everyone. Black, white, and I don't care. What does grandma say? I don't care if you're purple, right? Get vaccinated. That's my standard universally. There's no bigotry motivating that, right? That whatsoever. Now, I understand that there's certain communities that have different reasons for not trusting the government when it comes to medical reasons. There's a lot of community. For example, I believe communities that have lower incomes might distrust it at a higher rate than ones with a higher level of education. The reason why is that I believe that people with less media literacy and a lower level of education probably are not going to be able to, not necessarily be able to, but at a lower rate, they're going to know less about the medical science, right? Would you agree with that? That people with less education generally would know less about the medical science. So is that bigoted then against them for me to say, since they're going to have a higher rate of vaccine hesitancy, is that bigoted against the poor for me to say, you have to get vaccinated? I know you have vaccine hesitancy concerns. I understand that you believe that these crystals are going to save you, or whatever nonsense they could believe. You still need to get vaccinated. I hold that for the poor whites who believe that, for the conspiracy theorists that believe that, for the black people who believe that. I hold that for all people who believe that. So if your question, if a statement to not be framing it in this manner, you believe that the government should tell people that they have to get this vaccine that not only affects their health, but the health of the people around them, my answer to that would be yes.
But the problem is,
but covering it in like identity politics and stuff that I thought more of than that.
But you switched it to education level, but we can see the most vaccine hesitant group is people with PhDs.
Okay.
So it's not about education.
Okay, well, if it's not about education, then do you think I'm bigoted against the educated?
No, but the question is, why is that community?
So why? I just want to hear why I'm bigoted. That's what I want to hear.
Well, I'm not. I'm saying that it. Let me put it this way. I can see how people that think that the system's systemically racist.
Also,
and
can you cite that? That would actually be a massive thing for me. That actually could change my views on a few things.
Sure.
PhD people are the most vaccine hesitant.
So it was a study from Carnegie Mellon.
Okay.
There's better websites than this. This is the first one that came up on Google that says it, but it has the study there. You can see the graphic. But again, like the same people that want to tell us that all of these things is perceived systemic racism when there are unequal outcomes that affect certain communities, all of a sudden is like, oh, we know better than those communities and we have to tell them what's best for them when it comes to the medication they take. It reeks of elitism or bigotry or something like that.
This was like the first result that I got. In terms of education levels, people with a high school education or less had the largest decrease in vaccine hesitancy during the study period, while hesitancy held constant among those with PhD, which was the most hesitant group by May. So you are right, it seems to be. But then my question would just phrase or switch around to, then am I bigoted against them, right? But I don't really care if somebody believes.
Do you have a PhD?
Let me ask you a question. Do I have a PhD? At the moment, no.
So you seem to make an argument seconds ago where you said, we know better than them because they're not educated, so we'll tell them what to do. What if the people with PhD say, well, we're more educated than you and we're vaccine hesitant?
Well, just because, wait. I am going off of what medical experts believe. I'm going off of what the scientific community believes here. As far as I know, that they're in favor of vaccines. Am I correct in that? Would you see the medical community as anti-vax or pro-vaccine?
Depends on who you ask.
Pro-vaccine. The answer is pro-vaccine.
No. Real quick. When you say medical community, that's a broad group. You want to know one of the most hesitant groups? Nurses.
Okay.
They're in the medical community, correct?
Yes, but are they the ones doing the research on this?
I don't know, but that's why you have to be careful when you say the medical community.
Let's say those who are experts on the vaccine.
Who's that?
Medical researchers.
Just doctors? Is that what you're saying?
Medical researchers.
Okay. Well, again, again, I'm not even. You're pushing me to argue something that I don't want to argue about whether or not the vaccine's effective. But when we're just defaulting to the experts, the same experts that lied and bullshitted us and told us that it came from a lab.
The thing you sent me. Give me a moment here. Research Rob Noerr at Carnegie Mellon University and Wendell C. King of King University based their study of our vaccine hesitant rates off of results from a Facebook data for good survey, reviewing about 1 million responses each month between January and May, and analyzed it by race, education, region. So this was done from like a Facebook poll.
It might not be the best. I don't know. I'd be interested if you have counter evidence. That's fine.
Well, but, no, it's just I don't know if I'm gonna like hook my hat on a Facebook poll.
It wasn't just like Rob's YouTube poll. It was a collegiate study.
A Facebook
If there's
data for
counter
good
evidence-
survey. What does that mean?
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It basically, somebody they take a quiz on Facebook, and that's how they got this data. Now, I don't want to say that this data is like malicious, but I don't think I would, if I'm going to be talking about like who's the most likely to be vaccine hesitant, I don't know if I'm going to be trusting a Facebook poll for that data. I'd probably want to trust like in-person interviews or stuff, more traditional polling methods besides Facebook polls. If that's the case, then I'm going to put a Twitter poll out and ask the same question, and then we could just use that data.
Again, like, if you have counter data, again, this isn't just
But you can't
someone's
properly
random
vet
Twitter
these
poll.
responses. This is that Facebook data for good survey. They found this is a quiz that someone took on Twitter, on Facebook.
I'll look here.
If that's the case, then Rob, I do have a PhD now. I clicked it on the poll. I clicked it on the quiz. I have a PhD now.
Okay, so it's funny, right? Because we'll see then the type of studies
Wait,
that you suggest.
actually, I
and
do
what
have a
the
study, by the
methodology
way.
was.
I do have a study that counters this.
Okay.
It's from the Alden Institute.
Okay.
It says actually that the least likely to be vaccinated are those with a high school education or less.
Okay. Does it say anything about PhDs?
Yes, it says they're the least likely to be vaccine hesitant. It's from the Alden Institute.
Yeah, put the link.
Rob, that was a joke. I said the Alden Institute. General Alden. Rob.
What about him?
Never mind.
I don't understand. What are you talking about? What about General Alden? He did a study?
This is yeah, it's his institute. It's the Alden Institute.
He talked to me the other day. He didn't mention it. I heard him talking about his plans to withdraw from Afghanistan. He called into the show, but I didn't know that he did a study.
Yeah, he has a whole institute after him. He's a war hero.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Well, next time he calls in, I'll ask him. I didn't know, but I think I proved what I wanted here. You can
Okay.
say that you're not hypocritical about it, but I mean, you come off as an authoritarian that's willing to engage in risky behavior.
Risky behavior.
Yes, you are. You're
Would you say
unwilling
I'm
to
a
take-
risk taker, Rob?
No, I would say you're a hypocrite. That's the word I
Oh,
used.
Okay. I thought you were
Right?
at least leaving
You
with a
want
cool
the
label.
government to force other people to make medical positions in the name of keeping us all safe from COVID, but you're unwilling to take even reasonable measures. to
Reasonable.
lower
So you think
chances- Right.
you think stopping protest is reasonable?
Did I say stop all protest? I
So
said
what-
you
what-
as an individual going to that protest seems to be reasonable to
You
not
don't
do
you
that.
don't think it's reasonable for somebody from the community to cover?
I think other people would be covering it. It would be reasonable for you to not go.
You don't think it'd be
Why
reasonable?
do you have to be?
So do you
here?
think
Why
so
is
you
it you
wait, so
specifically?
wait, are you trusting the corporate media to give you the spin on the protest there? The CNN, a Fox News? I
Are you
thought
the
you stood
only-
up for the
are you-
the little guy
Are you
YouTuber.
the only non-corporate person that's going to be there?
Honestly, I actually don't know many people who are going. I
Nonetheless, I bet there'll be footage. I bet there will be other people there filming.
yeah, but maybe I think I could do a better job. You know,
Okay, that's fine. That's your personal
I'm gonna be
wish that
handing
you
out
want to be there.
Hunter Biden's memoirs as a free interview gift.
Right. So you want to do it for your amusement and your benefit, and you think that
Oh,
outweighs
it is.
the
It would.
increased risk that
It
you'll
will
put-
benefit me. It will put me at. I think it's probably gonna put me at a different type of physical risk than just COVID. But I believe that it is important for. I think in part, somewhat, my service to the community. I go to all of these things usually when these things happen, and the reason why is I believe it's important for people to come out in part in opposition to who's entering my community. Because I don't think these people represent the community that they're entering, right? That's the first reason. And the second reason I think it's important to cover it. For example, I got an angle of them attacking the reporters that no one else got when I posted that online. And that was the insurrection. What happened on January 6th? You don't agree with that
No,
title,
there
but
was
whatever.
no insurrection. So
Yeah, I don't.
Did you get that blue-haired grandma
Whatever.
following the velvet ropes? Is that the angle you got?
What was that?
Did you get that blue-haired grandma following the velvet ropes? Is that the angle of the insurrection you got?
I don't understand the comment. What?
There was blue-haired grandmas that the FBI are after because they were calmly walking through the Capitol through the velvet ropes. Is that the angle of the insurrection you got?
No, I got the one where they beat up the reporters and smashed all their camera equipment.
Oh, shit! Oh my God, yeah, we couldn't have an organization attacking reporters and hitting their camera equipment. I agree with you, that's shitty. Where were you and where's the left and all the times that we saw the left doing that for a year? It wasn't a big
I
deal when they were
condemned
beating
it.
up reporters and smashing camera equipment.
I condemn that.
Okay, well, that was an
In
insurrection
fact,
as well, then, right?
in
That
fact,
was
when I was in part of these counter protests, I would see some activity that I did not agree with on my side and reported on that too. And I think it's important for people on the left to call out left-wingers doing bad things.
May 31st, 2020, there was a bunch of left-winger BLM rioters that started a fire outside of a church. They then went to the White House, lit a guard station on fire with the
So
Molotov
is your
cocktails.
criticism is that I was not, wait, your criticism is that I was not at every riot?
No, that's not my criticism. My criticism is, was that an insurrection?
Was that an insurrection?
Yeah.
What was the goal of that?
To remove Donald Trump from the White House.
The goal of it was to remove Donald Trump.
That's what they were saying. They wanted to drag Trump out of the White House. What do you think they were doing? Why were they lighting things on fire, trying to break?
Well, I don't know about this incident. If their goal was to remove Donald Trump from the White House, and they were attempting to do that, and I don't know about this incident, but then, yeah, if they were breaking the law, burning property, attempting to do that, then that would be an insurrection of sorts.
Great. Okay,
we're just playing word games now, yeah.
But that's exactly what we're doing. That's why you called it an insurrection January 6th.
Well, no, Rob, I specifically said multiple times, you disagree with that definition. I tried to move on. I don't care what you call it at this point. The bad event, the no square, whatever the hell you want to call it, right?
Don't touch me there.
Exactly.
You know that song?
That, when I recorded that, I think that was important for me to be able to communicate to, I guess, the thousands of people. I'll just say or tens of thousands, or whoever amount of people listen to me, exactly what I saw when I was there, and to be there for my community. I think that's important.
But it's important for people to go to work. It's important for people to be able to see their grandmother. It's important for people to go to church.
And I'm vaccinated while I'm doing this, by the way.
Okay, so everyone should be forced to be vaccinated to do it, just like they should be forced to be vaccinated to go to work, correct?
Yeah, that's my position.
Okay, but then you say you're against having people prove that they're vaccinated when they go to the protest.
The reason we already went over this, Rob.
I know we did, but that's the problem is
the different. Wait, Rob.
Rob,
I am fine while working from the political PAC I work for them asking for identification or proof that I've been vaccinated. If they want to ask for my vaccine card, I'll give it to them. There you go. I'll give it to them when I travel out of the country as well. They can have it. Protests are very specific in its difference since they are an event of dissent. And I don't like the idea of giving IDs to authorities and an event manufactured to dissent against the government. There's a reason why protesters covered up their face. And this is an international thing. Every government in the world, people will do that at these protests because they don't trust the government enough to have that information of who is specifically dissenting against them at these types of protests.
So are you against, just curious then, are you against the massive surveillance effort by the FBI in trying to identify everyone that was at the January 6th protest?
If it's literally everyone, yeah.
I mean, there's tons of people that they've identified and looked for identification for.
If you're just some random grandma walking around, yeah, I think that's stupid. If you're somebody, if it's okay, then I think that's stupid. But I would say if it's someone like, I don't know, there's somebody who beat up cops and like tried to smash their heads in, or the person who planted a bomb, that's different. But if you're just some random person at the protest and you went home after, it's like whatever. Like you were there for the Trump speech, it's like, well, I'm going home. Yeah, I think that's silly.
And it's happening. You're
okay, and I've already told you, I think that's bad.
Okay, I just didn't.
So this is a consistent position I hold. The difference is, if let's say I was at a protest and I put a bomb in a building, then I think, and I'm not going to do that, just to be clear, but let's say I did that, then it would be completely correct for the FBI to try to find out who I was on some footage, right? We would both agree that that's the reason. Okay.
Yeah. I'm there's no disagreement here. I understand what you're saying, right? So yeah, that's it. I mean, I guess I could ask you, but I don't know how long. If you want to answer this,
almost 3 hours.
If you find out someone you're at this protest with is unvaccinated, will you request they leave?
Will I request they leave? I'll request they get vaccinated. I don't think requesting they'll leave is really going to do much work for a lot of people who disagree with me anyway. But I would be like, hey, do you think what you're doing right now is safe with all these people? Yeah, I'll probably ask them directly.
Would you tell the authorities this person's unvaccinated, you should remove them?
Well, it's not illegal, so it would be pointless.
What? I don't know. Is it
this illegal?
Protest allowed in DC? I don't know what the social distancing orders are in DC.
I don't think it's illegal to go to a protest unvaccinated.
Is it legal to be at the protest, or is that against the social distance guidelines?
It's scheduled, so I don't think the cops are preparing. They're putting up the fences. So if it was illegal, then they would just be stopping it, right?
Well, I don't know. You want to protest that we're against orders.
And by the way, even if it was illegal, wouldn't they just be like, we don't have enforcement powers?
But but you're recommending that we have enforcement powers for people that are jeopardizing others by being unvaccinated. That's your entire position.
Well, wait. Okay. Okay. Let me just make sure. Enforcement powers means that like something's illegal, but they don't have the power to enforce it, so they can't do anything, right?
Correct.
So, like, yes, if they had enforcement powers, then they could sure do it, but they don't have it, so it's not possible.
Okay, but you want.
So it would be like me going to the cops and saying that 1,000 million people just looted. It'd be like, yeah, I think we know. What do you think we're gonna do? We can't do anything. Like all we can do is try to clean up afterwards.
But you're advocating for enforcement powers for people that aren't vaccinated attending public events.
People are unvaccinated attending public events, mass public events. I mean, yeah, but it's not that's not how enforcement powers work, right? Like I advocate for enforcement powers against all laws that I want. Like empower. What do you?
So you're saying okay?
But, an enforcement power is just saying that they have the power to enforce something. So if I'm in favor of a law, then I'm in favor of them also having enforcement power. Enforcement power is just basically saying they are limited in how they can enforce this.
So you're saying that there should be a law.
Can I just make sure? I think this protest is legal. Did somebody?
I don't know.
I'll just ask chat. I'm pretty sure the protest is legal. I'm pretty confident it is. I mean, it would be kind of weird if they were putting up fences and getting ready, but then they were like, it's illegal.
That shit happened. It happened in Pennsylvania. I think one of the protests you went to was against Mayor Bowser's COVID mandates. There's been tons of protests that occurred that were against the individual mandates of the executives.
Okay.
Tons of them. Right? So you're saying that it should be illegal to attend a public protest or anything else.
Can I ask you a question? Is this gonna open another can of worms? Because we're going on 3 hours.
I'm ready to go. Okay. I'm just that's all I'm asking. You think it should be illegal to attend, regardless of the possibility of enforcement? It should be illegal to attend a protest if you're unvaccinated.
I mean, morally, yes, but if it's not enforceable, it's not enforceable.
They made it wasn't. If I'd asked you 3 weeks ago, do you think it's enforceable people attending work that aren't vaccinated? You would have said, no, that's not enforceable. Now it is.
It is enforceable because you have. What do you mean? You just.
The police are going to show up to every place of work and arrest people that aren't vaccinated?
Well, if every workplace in the world at once, they all just not getting vaccinated, then yes, of course. But the difference is a large part of the population is already vaccinated. Many companies already have vaccine mandates in place. Not to mention the fact that I don't think there's going to be as many people rejecting it and being like, I'm going to try to dodge the tests as possible. These companies are going to be cracking down on it on themselves. If it was just cops doing it, then it would be unenforceable. But these companies are going to get fined if they don't do it. Therefore, the companies are enforcing the law.
Right. So again,
it is enforceable. The companies are the agents of the state in this instance.
You wouldn't have said that a couple weeks ago. You would have said it was unenforceable.
Why? You have any proof?
Yeah, because we would have said it would have been impossible for police to arrest that. You're saying it should be illegal. That's what you said.
Well, yes, morally, yes.
What do you mean illegal morally?
I acknowledge something should be illegal, but if it's something that is not enforceable, then it's like, what you're going to do? But yes, I do believe it should be illegal. Now, the thing is, the difference is there's no private company that's going to like be able to, like, what is there, the protest company that walks into every protest and like, you're all my protest. Maybe, unless you're thinking George Soros is the one who pays the bills, then I don't think there's any boss there that could.
I don't know who pays you to go LARP with the Proud Boys. I don't know who's doing that. But I'm glad it's very important for you and that you're willing to jeopardize your family and loved ones by putting yourself at risk for people you know that won't be vaccinated.
Jeopardize my family and loved ones. Which family members am I jeopardizing?
The people that you see every day.
Wow. Because
you're more likely to contract COVID when you're there and then spread it to them when you get home.
So Grubhub drivers who I don't interact with. Dude, right now I am alone until Kat gets back from Portugal.
Okay. Well, nonetheless,
she'll be back on the 27th, so I would have already done quarantine. I do quarantine after going to these events, to be clear.
Okay. Well, that is good. But all right, man, I'll let you go. I still think you're a hypocrite.
Wait,
I
I lied.
like you,
I
but
see my chat every day. Maybe I'll get them infected.
there you go. I don't know. It's the way that these, the COVID things go. I wouldn't put it past Dr. Fauci to come out here in a month or so and go, oh, yeah, you have to wear your mask if you're streaming. We need to protect these people. I wouldn't put it past him. So,
And I'll be there to
all right,
defend them.
man. We should talk about Norm Macdonald sometime, be less contagious or less confrontational. So, but I'll head out. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, you have a good one.
Yeah.
Jesus. I was not ready for that conversation. And what I mean by that is I was ready for a conversation about my hypocrisy when it comes to protests. I was not ready for voter ID laws being racist. I was not ready for that fucking turn, but I think I did okay.